I stared at the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. A notification pulsed, stark and impossible. Host in distress detected. Super arms dealer system ready for initialization. Provide 3 Doge heads to activate. My bank account sat at a flat 0, a cruel reality check. I didn't hesitate. Activate, I whispered. System initialized. Startup capital of $50 million granted. Daily check-in reward, 1 super dreadnought yacht. I blinked. My phone buzzed again, but the screen now displayed a digital map of a private island, complete with a fully automated, state-of-the-art weapons manufacturing facility. The island was completely off the grid, invisible to any form of global surveillance. I had never felt more alive. Before I could even draft a business plan, my phone rang. A group from the Delta region. They skipped the pleasantries, their tone desperate. Mr. Lin, there are 550 million guns in this world for 7 billion people. That's 1 gun for every 12 people. What about the other 11? How are they supposed to protect themselves? We're the ones without, and we need your help. I leaned back, a smirk forming. Finding me was your first stroke of luck. I'll take the deal. What are you looking for? Do you have a catalog? They pressed. Anything from rifles to armored vehicles, tanks, jets, warships. If you have the inventory, we have the cash. I pulled up the latest listings. I've got the latest Russian spec AKs, $2,000 a pop. Order enough, and I'll cut you a deal. They exchanged a look of pure relief. We'll take 500 units. 500? That's barely a drop in the bucket, I chuckled. No discount for that, but I'll throw in a crate of grenades and some handguns on the house. Honestly, my motivation and I are in a long-distance relationship, but profit always brings us back together. Thank you, Mr. Lin. They beamed. We have a shipment moving into the US soon. Once that clears, we'll be back for heavier gear. Shipping to the US? I shrugged. As long as it benefited my country, the geopolitical headaches weren't my problem. That's a tomorrow problem. Since you guys seem decent, I've got something better, I said, snapping my fingers. My white associate popped open a heavy metal case, revealing a sleek, silver bulletproof vest. The black associate didn't wait. He grabbed one of the AK-47s and let off a tight burst directly at the vest. The bullet sparked and died. When the smoke cleared, there wasn't even a dent, just a faint white mark on the fabric. Dragon God-grade ceramic plating, I explained. It stops 12.7mm machine gun rounds from 50 meters out. Your standard squirt guns won't even scratch the paint. I'll let you have 50 of these for $500 each. They stared at the vest, then at me, their jaws nearly hitting the floor. We'll take them. We'll take them all. They stammered, scrambling to finalize the order. My pleasure, I said, leaning back. I mean, my wallet has trust issues with me, but it was certainly going to be much happier after this. Sending in our military to Southeast Asia was out of the question. It would trigger a diplomatic firestorm and likely escalate into an international conflict. Providing direct material support was the only viable path, but even that was a logistical nightmare. Finding a secure channel for the weapons without triggering global surveillance was nearly impossible. Commander, an officer interrupted. The Kun brothers just purchased a massive shipment of gear from an incredibly active new arms dealer. Did you capture the transaction? Yes, sir. Satellite tracking recorded the entire deal. Intel ran the dealer's facial biometrics against our classified database. And the result? The officer hesitated, then slid a file onto the table. You'll have to see it to believe it, sir. The officers leaned in, only to recoil in disbelief. What? Are you certain? This arms dealer is just a child. It's confirmed. His name is Lin Chuan. He's a high schooler. The commander's eyes sharpened. I'm intrigued. I want to meet him personally. While the brass was busy analyzing my life, I was busy trying to survive my own return. I rolled into class a full week late. Lin Chuan, you're actually here. My monitor exclaimed. I thought you transferred. Not a chance. I laughed. Even if it's just for the sake of our dedicated class monitor, who kept calling to check up on me, I've got to finish here. So, where were you for the last few weeks? Like we discussed on the phone, I was abroad. She squinted at me. You look a little tanner. Did you go to Africa or something? Not quite. I was in the Golden Triangle. You went to the Triangle? For what? Selling fireworks. The room went silent, then exploded into laughter. Fireworks? You're telling us you went all the way to the Golden Triangle to sell fireworks? That's some high-level international trade. Must have made a fortune, huh? I leaned back, unfazed. The market is still in its infancy, really. Just a few small deals here and there. After covering costs, I cleared a few tens of millions. The laughter grew even louder. A few tens of millions. Chuan, you're the king of tall tales. If this school held a lying competition, you'd take the gold medal every year. Seriously, another classmate chimed in. With all that money, where's the mansion? The sports car? Take us for a ride sometime. I don't really have a use for that stuff overseas, I replied with a shrug. Though, for the sake of my business operations. I bought a yacht as a mobile base, I explained, deadpan. The room erupted in mocking laughter. Sure, Lin Chuan, 666, the fireworks tycoon himself. You should write an autobiography, Chen first chapter, How I Sold Fireworks Abroad. It'd be a bestseller. Give it a rest, Chuan, one classmate jeered. You've maxed out your BS stat this winter break. If even a single word you just said is true, I'll eat my test papers. Before I could retort, the door swung open. Our homeroom teacher, He Chun-lan, marched in, eyes blazing. Lin Chuan, you finally decided to grace us with your presence? It's been over a week since school started. Do you think you can just extend your vacation indefinitely? She slammed a hand on my desk. There are barely 100 days until the college entrance exams. Do you have any idea how critical this is? If you keep acting like a clown, how do you expect to make anything of yourself? Before I could answer, a student poked their head in. Mr. He, there's someone here to see Lin Chuan. During class, who in their right mind comes to my classroom to pull a student away? Who's going to take responsibility for this interruption? Mr. He, you should really come out, the student stammered. They're at the door. I followed her outside, curious to see who was being so bold. My jaw nearly hit the floor. Standing in the hallway were military officers in crisp uniforms. Mr. He, this is Lin Chuan's homeroom teacher, He Chun-lan, a student introduced. Mr. He, we're here to see Lin Chuan, the lead officer said, his voice clipped and professional. Who are you people? What is this about? She demanded, shielding me. We have no familial relation to him, the officer replied. We are here on orders from our superiors. We aren't authorized to disclose the specifics. Mr. He, just let him go, a classmate whispered from the doorway. They're protecting the country. If Chuan hasn't done anything wrong, they won't hurt him. I stepped forward. I'm Lin Chuan. The officer turned to me, his expression softening slightly. Lin Chuan, do you have a moment? Our commander wants to speak with you. He's waiting in the principal's office. The classroom behind me descended into absolute chaos. They were whispering, phones out, recording every move. No way. Lin Chuan is being taken by the military. Even the commander wants to see him. I've only ever seen people like that on the news. What did he even do? Someone hissed. I heard him talking about selling fireworks abroad earlier. But that doesn't bring a commander to your doorstep. What? Did he sell $100 million worth of firecrackers? I stayed silent as they escorted me to the principal's office. Inside, He Chun-lan stood by the door, her hands trembling. Commander, please, what exactly did my student do? The commander looked at me, then at her. He spent his vacation selling arms abroad. Arms? That's impossible. He's just a student. Age is irrelevant, the commander countered. I know 2 other students who use their spare time to become mercenaries, both of whom source their gear directly from him. He Chun-lan looked like she was about to faint, but the commander raised a hand. Don't worry, we aren't here to arrest him. We're here to discuss a partnership. A partnership, she gasped. Commander, an aide announced. Lin Chuan is here. Lin Chuan, you surely understand why we've brought you here, the commander stated, his gaze piercing. I haven't the faintest idea, I replied, leaning back with a calm shrug. We have records of 4 major arms shipments you've orchestrated over the last 4 months. I chuckled. I never intended to hide, did I? If I actually wanted to cover my tracks, you'd never have found me in the first place. The commander leaned forward, his voice hardening. You realize that arms trafficking is a serious felony, don't you? Of course, I said, meeting his eyes. But I'm conducting my business in international waters from my own yacht. If my memory serves me correctly, international law stipulates that only the country where the vessel is registered has jurisdiction. My yacht is flagged in Kiribati. The commander drew a sharp, audible breath. He looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. Kiribati had no diplomatic ties with Dragon Country, making extradition impossible. Plus, with the proper local government permits, arms dealing there was completely legal. Before he could respond, I gave him a confident smirk. I already have the official Kiribati documentation. If you need to verify it, I can have the papers delivered within the hour. The commander burst into a hearty laugh. I knew my instincts were right. Would you be interested in a partnership with the military? A partnership. I raised an eyebrow. Is that what this is? I came here to talk business, but the way you dragged me in, I thought I was facing a firing squad. My apologies, he admitted with a grin. We didn't realize we were dealing with such a high-end client. Actually, I continued, pivoting to business, I've been meaning to mention that some of Dragon Country's current gear is falling short. The Type 95's sight rail is too high, the recoil is excessive, and the muzzle smoke is thick enough to signal your position for miles. My top-tier clients aren't interested in that. The officers exchanged stunned looks. My assessment was brutally accurate. Ignoring their shock, I pulled a blueprint from my pocket and slid it across the table. This is the latest US design. The performance puts the Type 95 to shame. Interested in a bulk order? I'll cut you a 20% discount since we're all countrymen. The commander studied the blueprint, his stoic expression barely masking his shock. He looked at me with newfound respect. I really am a master of the trade. I'll need to discuss the purchase with my superiors, he finally said. But my primary reason for seeking you out is different. The world is becoming increasingly unstable. There are outcomes Dragon Country desires, and outcomes it cannot be seen to support. We are constantly under the global spotlight, unable to move freely. Trees have shadows, and the nation needs someone to navigate them. I smiled, finally understanding the true scope of his proposal. You need a middleman to nudge things in the right direction. Exactly. Acting as a middleman? I echoed, the grin widening. I think I can manage that. I'm a businessman first, I told him, flashing a knowing grin. I don't work for free, but if we're talking about a mutually beneficial partnership, I'm listening. Agreed, the commander said, extending a hand. Pleasure doing business. I'll send an operative to coordinate with you soon. We'll meet again. As I left, I heard one of the officers grumbling, "Commander, why show such deference to a mere arms dealer? I could have had him in cuffs in seconds." "Because it's not in our interest." The commander replied coolly, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend. This boy has immense potential. He's built his own network from scratch in record time. Every major power uses unofficial proxies. Dragon Country needs one, too. But don't mistake this for blind trust. We won't rely solely on his patriotism." He paused, his expression thoughtful. "And that female special operative, and ran, find a way to get her close to him. Publicly or covertly, it doesn't matter." I didn't hear the rest. I was busy dealing with the principal, who had chased me down, his face a mask of nervous sweat. "Lin Chuan, I had no idea you were an arms dealer, let alone one negotiating with the military," he stammered, his voice cracking. "You really are something else." My apologies for the scare, principal. I felt a twinge of guilt seeing him so shaken, but I wasn't backing down. "And there's no need to call me student anymore. I'm not planning on staying. I came back today just to submit my withdrawal." "What? Lin? I mean, Mr. Lin." He looked like he'd been struck. "Is the school failing you? Tell me what you need, and we'll fix it." I stared at him, baffled. "Principal, are you running a fever? What is this really about?" "It's not a fever," he confessed, desperate. "Shining High is a century-old institution, but in my 20 years as principal, we haven't produced a single notable success. Our reputation is in a freefall. Please, you can't drop out. You don't have to attend classes. You don't even have to take the entrance exams. I'll pull strings for a guaranteed admission to any university you want. Just keep your enrollment here." I was stunned. The old man was willing to burn his reputation to keep me on the roster. It was a bizarre, full-court press, but I respected the hustle. "Fine," I sighed. "I won't drop out. Thank you, Mr. Lin. Thank you." He looked like he was about to burst into tears of joy. "If that's all, I'm heading home." "Of course. You don't need to attend class, but you must appear at our upcoming school anniversary celebration." "When is it?" "Right before the entrance exams. I'll notify you of the exact date." "Deal," I said. "I'll be there." I watched the principal hurry away, his eyes locked on my retreating form, before he turned and sprinted toward my classroom. I didn't stick around to hear what he said, but I could imagine the chaos. The principal burst into the room, breathless. "Lin Chuan, he's gone. And don't you dare ask where." He leveled a finger at the stunned room. "Class dismissed for regular studies. I'm ordering the entire class, the homeroom teacher included, to write a 10,000-word biography of Lin Chuan. Right now." "A biography? For who?" someone sputtered. "For Mr. Lin, I mean, Lin Chuan. What a talent. What a tragic loss." "Principal," a student piped up, "can we use classical eulogy styles, maybe something archaic?" "Eulogy? No, you idiots. He isn't dead." The principal's shout left the room reeling. "He's alive and kicking, and he just signed a partnership with the military. That lieutenant general wasn't here to threaten him. He was here to negotiate. Our school hasn't produced a notable figure in a century, and now that we finally have one, he's going on the wall of fame. Write those biographies." While the school descended into absolute pandemonium, I was already walking home. It felt like I'd been on the move for months. Honestly, between the constant travel and the deals, the numbers were starting to blur. I pulled up my system interface to check the bottom line. Name, Lin Chuan. Age, 18. Funds, $64,502,000. Military merit points, 53,000, 1,680. Available. Host can earn points by selling weapons or converting funds at a rate of $1,000 per point, the system prompted. Higher-end gear yields more points. Points can be exchanged for blueprints, production equipment, and raw materials. I stared at the readout. Over $64 million. I'd been sitting on a gold mine. Up until now, I'd only ever used the points the system gifted me, hoarding my cash. Now, I had enough to trigger a massive conversion. With that kind of capital, I could unlock the entire high-end section of the store. If I wanted a weapon, I could just buy the design and start the assembly line. I opened the store interface, my grin widening with every entry. PKP Pecheneg, 1,000 points. BM-13, rocket launcher, 1,500 points. Barrett XM, 109 anti-material sniper rifle, 5,000 points. Incredible, I muttered. The system even had experimental gear that hadn't finished its official R&D cycles yet, and it let me optimize them too. My phone buzzed. It was Big Black. "Boss, the deal is closed. The cargo is on its way," he reported. "But there's a new development. Someone from Japan's Yamaguchi Gumi reached out. They want to open a trade line with you." I scoffed. "The Yamaguchi Gumi? They've fallen that far? If I trade with them, I'll probably end up with a pile of IOUs instead of payment. My wallet and I are currently not speaking as it is, and I don't need them adding to the silence." "Should I reject them, boss?" "Obviously. They're broke. At best, they'd buy a few handguns. At worst, they'd try to borrow money from me. Tell them where to go." "Understood. Rejecting them now. Anything else?" I asked. "No, boss. Everything's running smoothly." I hung up and paced, lost in thought. The margins on arms dealing were insane, over 80%, and the profit only skyrocketed with high-end tech. I could dump cash into the system for military merit points, use those to snag cutting-edge schematics, and manufacture the hardware at my own facility. Production wasn't a problem. My island was remote, and the system kept it hidden from prying eyes. The real bottleneck was distribution. Dealing weapons was a high-stakes crime nearly everywhere, and the authorities were relentless. I needed to crack the global black market wide open. Lost in my scheming, I didn't realize I'd arrived at my front door until I saw it. My parents had passed years ago, leaving us with enough insurance money to scrape by and keep my sister in school. "Big brother, you're home." My sister launched herself at me, eyes sparkling. "I missed you so much. Did you actually sell weapons? Did you make a fortune?" "It went well," I said, offering a tired smile. "I made a bit." She did a quick lap around me, her expression shifting from excitement to a practiced, pouty pout. "You go on a massive trip and don't even bring me a gift? I've been doing all the cooking, cleaning, and schoolwork alone. Being a student is a total ripoff." Crap. I'd been so busy scaling my empire that I'd completely forgotten to pick up a souvenir. "Wait, don't cry. Don't cry," I scrambled. "What do you want? I'll go buy it right now. Name it." "Anything." Her tears vanished instantly, replaced by a grin so wide it was almost suspicious. "Anything at all? Then take me with you to sell weapons." My head started throbbing. "Absolutely not. I know you love guns, it's your thing, and I get it, but you're still a minor. Focus on your schooling." "What school?" "They aren't even holding classes this semester," she countered. "I'm stuck at home playing PUBG all day because I'm bored out of my mind. If you don't take me, I'm just going to go become a mercenary myself." I looked at her and hesitated. I knew her better than anyone. If I flat out refused, she'd probably find a way to do exactly that. "Fine," I conceded, rubbing my temples. "I have a trip to Kiribati coming up. You can come see the factory, but that's it." Meanwhile, a high-level command meeting was underway at the Eastern Theater Command. The video conference connected commanders and chiefs of staff from all 5 major theater commands. "Comrades," the lead officer began, his voice grave. "Global economic tightening is officially underway. Global tensions are peaking again," the chief of general staff noted, his voice echoing through the secure video feed. "Major powers are repositioning, and things in our backyard are heating up. Intelligence confirms that the Indians are cozying up to the Americans for a massive arms deal. Worse, they've already instigated multiple border clashes, deliberately provoking Pakistan. 2 skirmishes have broken out, and the situation is sliding toward full-scale war." The room grew heavy. "Pakistan has always been our vital ally, our counterweight against India." "General Chen, what's your take?" the chief asked. "I'd prefer to hear the general staff's perspective first," Chen replied, a sentiment echoed by the other theater commanders. "We must support them," the chief conceded, "but direct intervention against India doesn't serve our national interests. We need an indirect way to boost Pakistan's combat readiness. The core issue is India's tank superiority. Even with our emergency export of 100 VT-4 tanks, the scales remain tipped. India fields a massive array of Arjun tanks and a significant fleet of Russian T-90 SES. They simply have more iron on the field. What about mountain anti-aircraft artillery or long-range rocket systems?" a commander suggested. "Not feasible," the chief countered. "We don't have existing export plans for those, and our current stocks are only enough for our own ranks. Opening new production lines would take at least a month, and by the time we handle transport, customs, and training, the war will be over. Most importantly, Pakistan is broke. They can't even afford to pay off the VT-4S they already bought. They're paying us in installments." The silence in the virtual room was suffocating. We were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Chief of General Staff, Commander Gao spoke up suddenly. "I request to speak. Do you have a solution? I know an arms dealer who might have a way." "An arms dealer?" The chief raised an eyebrow. "Who are you talking about?" "His name is Lin Chuan. He's incredibly capable. He doesn't just provide high-quality gear, he delivers fast." The chief weighed this. "It's a lead worth following. Do you have his contact information? Reach out to him immediately and see what he proposes." I was sitting at home at the time, scrolling through job boards for an assistant. Since Dehay and Dabai were too conspicuous to keep by my side back home, I needed a woman for the role, someone detail-oriented who could also keep an eye on my sister while I traveled. I was deep into a pile of resumes when my phone chimed. It was Commander Gao. I picked up, a smirk already forming. "You military types finally come to your senses. You want to place an order?" I asked, my voice casual. The room went dead silent. Through the phone, I could practically hear the high-ranking officers in the room blink in unison. Commander Gao sounded like he had a massive headache. "It's not an order, Lin Chuan. I'm calling because we're facing a complex situation that's proving difficult to resolve. I wanted your input." "Of course, Commander," I replied, leaning back in my chair. "Solving client problems is the core of our business model. Do you need to deal with some tanks? Are you looking to buy some hardware from me?" "No, you've got it wrong," he snapped, then hesitated. "Wait, do you actually have tanks?" "I do," I said. "Though, if you don't need them, what's the issue?" "We need to help Pakistan," he explained. "Their armored divisions are outclassed, and we need a way for them to neutralize enemy tanks without going head-to-head in a tank battle." "Neutralizing tanks? You're talking about dealing with the Indians, right?" "Exactly. Any bright ideas?" "If you're talking about their domestic Arjun tanks, an anti-tank sniper rifle is all you need." A voice I didn't recognize cut through the line. dripping with condescension. This man clearly lacks basic military knowledge. Why are you leaking state secrets to a merchant? Gao. You're wasting our time. I didn't blink. You doubting me? A 14.5mm anti-tank sniper rifle with tungsten core armor-piercing rounds can achieve 200mm of penetration. Impossible, the stranger scoffed. Our testing for that caliber never exceeds 150mm. You're making things up. That's because my rifles are superior to anything you've seen, I countered. I build them differently. Even if your rifles hit 200mm, the voice continued, still skeptical, that's not enough. The Arjun is a heavy beast. Its frontal armor exceeds 450mm. I disagree, I said. I'm telling you, an anti-tank rifle can punch straight through the front. One shot, one kill. It'll blow the thing to pieces. And how exactly can you be so certain? Because I have the full leaked blueprints for the Arjun, I said, a slow grin spreading across my face. Its armor weaknesses are glaringly obvious. I know exactly where to hit. The line fell deathly quiet. I could practically visualize the commander's eyes widening in shock. The Arjun was a piece of junk, sure, but its production secrets were locked down tight. Where are these weak points? The skeptic demanded. Sorry, friend. I'm a businessman. If you want the location of those vulnerabilities, it's going to cost you. And how much are we talking about? 20 million USD? Not a penny less. I could hear the commanders groaning in frustration, but after a moment of heavy silence, the chief of general staff made the call. Fine, he said. Pakistan will foot the bill. Even if Pakistan hesitated, footing the bill ourselves wouldn't be a loss. If that war spilled over our borders, the military expenditure would balloon by at least 100 times that amount. Contact the Pakistani side immediately, the chief ordered. Explain the situation. In under 5 minutes, my phone pinged. A transfer notification hit my international bank account, $20 million USD. Working with true professionals is always a pleasure, I said, grinning as the digits confirmed the deposit. All right, listen close. The Arjun's turret structure is flawed. Hit it at the right angle, and a single shot will punch right through. A commander interrupted, skeptical. That's impossible. I know the Arjun. It uses Russian-imported high-hardness cast steel, the so-called iron cage armor. Its defensive efficiency hits 118%, far above the international standard. Even a point-blank tank cannon would struggle to penetrate that. How could a mere sniper rifle do it? You're giving India way too much credit, I countered. Sure, they bought the tech for the cast steel, but you're forgetting the Arjun is a patchwork mess. The integration is a nightmare. They tried to jam German-made fire control systems into their own bootleg autoloader. To make it fit, they had to shave down the armor at the edge of the gun mantlet. I leaned in, feeling like a teacher correcting a particularly slow student. Aim for a 0.27 degrees off-center from the front of the turret, right where the mantlet meets the side armor. A 200mm penetration anti-tank rifle will punch through like paper. You'll fry their fire control system in one hit. If you're lucky enough to tag the HE rounds in the autoloader, sit back and enjoy the fireworks. The silence on the line was thick enough to cut. My analysis was clinical, the data points too precise to dismiss. I was even citing classified intel that most of these guys hadn't seen. They had no choice but to believe me. If we know the weak point, the chief finally spoke, his voice tense. We might as well test it with anti-tank rifles. It's a low-risk gamble. But do we have to use your specific gear? Yes, I said smoothly. You need the specialized rifles I produce. Anything else will just bounce off. How much? $1 million a pop, I replied casually. I heard the collective groan on the other end of the line. They were probably feeling like I was the greediest arms dealer on the planet. I didn't care. I just set the phone down and went back to browsing job listings. Honestly, $1 million a pop wasn't even expensive. My factory tech was getting more sophisticated by the day, and top-tier gear simply didn't come cheap. I'm a businessman, not a charity. I don't lose money. I just relocate it. Remember the price of an American M8201? The chief of general staff asked, his tone contemplative. Around $100,000, and that's the military procurement price, someone answered. Anti-tank rifles are a strategic asset, the chief continued. They're significantly harder to manufacture than standard anti-material rifles, so the cost reflects that. But war is ultimately a numbers game. If one of these rifles can take out an Arjun tank, the math is undeniably in our favor. The other commanders weighed this. It was a massive bargain for the potential payoff. Decided then, the chief concluded. We'll start with an initial order of 20 units. If they prove effective against the Arjuns, we'll scale up. Consider it done, chief, I said into the phone. Customer satisfaction is my business model. When can you deliver? 5 days. Give me 5 days. 5 days it is. Where should we send the shipment? Deliver it to Pakistan, I said. I'll have my people meet you there, and you handle the customs and logistics. Understood. Once the call ended, the chief turned to his staff. Gao, do you have a full dossier on this Lin Chuan? Reporting, sir. Our intel division vetted him last week. His age, family, and home region all check out. He's an ordinary high school student, but his trail went cold during the winter break. He suddenly reappeared from abroad last week, and just like that, he's an arms dealer. Keep digging, the chief ordered. Use the Southeast military region's resources if you have to. Understood. And sir, have Commander Chen pick out a few special forces operatives. Send them to Pakistan immediately. Once the rifles arrive, have them in bed with the Pakistani forces to test the hardware. If Lin Chuan is telling the truth, I want them to confirm it. Pakistan might have snipers, but they likely haven't handled this level of anti-tank weaponry, so your men will need to handle the training. Yes, sir, we won't fail. I hung up, a satisfied smile tugging at my lips. I couldn't believe I just landed a deal with the nation's military brass, and high-level brass at that. I had myself a massive new client. Time to get moving. I stood on the deck, feeling the salt spray against my skin. The ocean was something else entirely. It felt way more real than anything I'd ever seen in a game. Big brother, my sister complained, pulling at my sleeve. I don't want to go back. Why do you get to go out and have all these adventures while I'm stuck rotting in school? When you're grown up, we'll talk about it, I said, dodging the question. Ugh, you're an arms dealer now, but you're still pushing me to do homework? I chuckled. While she griped, the wheels were already turning. Across the globe, the elite Thunder Commando unit Li Shen, Yan Wang, Old Fox, and Little B were already mobilizing, bound for Pakistan. Lin Chuan's gear is supposed to be top tier, but we need to verify it ourselves. Their commander briefed them. If their soldiers can't use it, you teach them. If you have to take the shot yourselves, you do it. Understood. The Lightning Commando unit has never failed a mission. In another room, the briefing continued. Anran, you have a special assignment. What is it? Lin Chuan. Even our best intel systems can't get a full read on him. The nation needs him, but we need to understand him first. You're going to apply for the position of his assistant. As the 5 commandos mobilized, I touched down at my private military base with Lin Shui in tow. Big brother, you actually own an entire weapons factory. She gasped, her eyes wide as she took in the humming facility. It's got 4 lines for now, I said, shrugging. Maybe 5 or 6 later. I might even build a second location. But these lines are so complex, there's not a single worker in sight. They don't need anyone, I replied. It's fully automated. She stared at the machinery. How did you even get this gear? You've only been gone 3 months. You don't need to worry about the how, I said, ruffling her hair. Just know that as long as you're with me, you've got full clearance to play with whatever you want. Thanks, big brother. I turned to my lead automated systems. Dahe, I need this underground facility expanded. Build 2 more heavy-duty lines. Here are the schematics. Understood, boss. Dahe, keep the expansion on track. Dabai, you stay with my sister, I ordered. Dabai, once the anti-tank rifles are finished, load them for sea transport. Get them to Karachi, then into Pakistan. I'll meet you in Peshawar. The global situation was a powder keg, and countries were already looking to start fires to distract their own citizens. For me, that meant business was booming if I played my cards right. Back in the country, I checked my email. One candidate had replied to my job post, and Xiao Yun. She was in her 20s and looked sharp enough, but the second I saw her headshot, something felt off. My gut told me she was way more than a simple job seeker. Still, a job's a job. I set the interview at a park. When I arrived, a woman was already waiting. You're in Xiaoyun? And you must be Mr. Lin, she replied with a polite smile. I assume you read the job requirements thoroughly, I said, getting straight to the point. But let's be real, I operate in a gray area. I spend most of my time on battlefields, and more often than not, I'm crossing borders without a passport. She didn't even blink. I know you're an arms dealer, but isn't that something you'd usually keep quiet about? She gave me a look that was part curiosity and part challenge. Anyway, do I meet the criteria? I'm honestly a bit strapped for cash, and when I saw the salary you were offering, I figured this wasn't exactly a typical office gig. I didn't answer right away, just gave her a long, hard stare. Can you handle a rifle? I'm talking automatic. Can you handle a rifle? I asked, watching her carefully. She blinked, clearly caught off guard. I knew exactly who she was, Anarin, the plant sent by the military. But since she wanted to play this game, I was more than happy to provide the script. My brother is just kidding, Lin Shu piped up, oblivious to the tension. He's probably just testing if you know your way around weapons. People in our line of work usually do, right? I'm sure you're very professional, I added, cutting in. Lin Shu looked at me confused. Big brother, have you met her before? We've been together this whole time. I didn't answer, just kept my gaze fixed on Anran. I knew she was a sleeper agent, and I couldn't wait to see how she'd handle the chaos I was about to unleash. Don't worry, I said to my sister, leaning in with a playful smirk. We're all friends here. Anran regained her composure quickly. Mr. Lin, what exactly will my duties entail? First and foremost, keep an eye on my sister. Her head is a little in the clouds lately, and I'm too busy to keep her grounded. Any issues with that? None at all. I'll do my job. Good. Protecting her is just the start, I continued, turning up the heat. My assistant handles everything. Tea, snacks, maybe even warming up the bed, the usual. Lin Shu's jaw dropped. Big brother, that's so shameless. You've completely stunned her. Anran stayed remarkably cool, though her eyes narrowed. I'll handle the professional duties, Mr. Lin, but I won't tolerate anything inappropriate. I laughed. Relax, it's just an assistant position. Unless, of course, you're angling for a promotion to Secretary Anne. Big brother, what are you even talking about? Lin Shu groaned. I ignored her, grinning at my new employee. Congratulations, you're hired. You start right now. Thank you, Mr. Lin. Where should I begin? First, we need a code name. You know how this business goes, fake passports and all that. I've narrowed it down to two options, Anya or Anran. Pick one. She didn't hesitate. Anran sounds terrible. I'll go with Anya. Good choice, I said. Anyone would have to be out of their mind to pick Anran. Since all my subordinates go by Da names Dahe, Dabai, from now on, you're Daya. Understood, boss, she said, her tone professional despite the absurd nickname. I'll adapt. Perfect. You're on the clock. My social battery has been on 1% since Monday, but somehow, dealing with her was starting to feel like the most entertaining part of my day. Get the travel gear ready tonight, I told Anya. We're heading out tomorrow. Where to? A war zone. She didn't miss a beat. And who are we meeting? The local combat commanders. Who else would buy our hardware? I climbed into the driver's seat. Step on it. Dabai doesn't like waiting. The journey to Peshawar felt long, but Anya remained professional, her focus locked on my sister's safety. Don't worry. Lin Chuan piped up from the back, her voice bubbling with uncharacteristic ambition. It's not dangerous. Honestly, I just wish I had 10 loyal subordinates like Dabai. I'd make them call me Your Majesty and finally achieve my dream of being a boss. I thought your dream was to become an ace in PUBG, I teased. That's just a small goal. My real target is to become a legend like you, a total powerhouse. You wouldn't get it. Just call me Your Majesty already. Right away, Your Majesty. When we finally pulled up, Dabai emerged from the compound. His eyes narrowed the second he locked onto Anya, his gaze radiating pure hostility. Relax, Dabai, I said, patting his shoulder. She's my new assistant. She's one of us. You two will get along just fine. Anya barely registered his glare. Having served in the special forces, she wasn't about to be rattled by a bodyguard, no matter how intimidating. General Benyam stepped out to greet us, his expression warm. Mr. Lin, it is a pleasure to finally collaborate. I've heard about your business ventures in the Gulf of Thailand. Small scale, I said, shaking his hand. I'm much more focused on making sure this transaction goes smoothly. It is critical, Mr. Lin. I've inspected your rifles and the build quality is impressive. There are rumors, however, that you're so certain the Arjun's armor can be penetrated because you have their original schematics. I have the data, I confirmed, but I only sell weapons, not blueprints. If you're interested in an Arjun of your own, though, I can let you have one for half price, $2.5 million. How's that? Banyam laughed. The Arjun I can do without. But if your weapons deliver the performance you promised, I'll gladly introduce you to other clients. Credibility is the backbone of my business, I said. I guarantee every piece of gear I move is flawless. General, I'm more excited for the battlefield debut than anything else. I have a feeling it's going to be quite the performance. Mr. Lin, if your weapons are as effective as you claim, you'll be a permanent fixture on our military supplier list. General, I promised, my grin widening, you're about to see a hell of a fireworks show. Do you have other tanks? I asked, leaning back. Name it. If you've got the cash, I can source anything from the M1A2 to the Leopard 2 or the Challenger 2. As I hashed out the details with General Banyam, my gaze drifted to a few soldiers in Pakistani uniforms. Something was off, they had distinctly East Asian features. What are you looking at? Anya whispered, leaning close. I'm learning how to spot Chinese special ops, I murmured. My business is booming. It was only a matter of time before the military sent someone to go undercover. If you catch a mole, what will you do? She asked, her voice steady. I loathe spies. If I ever build my own kingdom, I won't tolerate them, I said. If it's a guy, I'll coat him in honey and let the ants do the rest while he's tied up, of course. If it's a woman, I'll smear her with fish glue and let the cats lick it off. Same principle, tie them up, keep them immobile. You. What? She stared at me, eyes wide. Don't play dumb. I'm 16 and I understand this. But you're 24 and acting like you don't. I blinked. What was wrong with students these days? Were they all researching such high-level disciplines at 16? Using cats is a bit beneath a queen like me, she muttered, tapping her chin. You got a better idea? I'm honestly out of my depth here. You're a university grad, right? I teased. You're doing worse than a middle schooler. Honestly, I know a method. Smear their feet with salt and let the goats lick it off. Goat tongues have rough, jagged barbs. It was a favorite of the ancient queen of Elria for punishing disobedient servants. You're saying this in front of my sister? I interjected, stepping into their little circle. What are you going on about? Lin Chuan snapped. It's just licking the soles of their feet. It's not like it's... I know it's the feet, I said, cutting her off. I just think it's a bit too brutal. The mental image is terrifying. Big brother, you shouldn't be eavesdropping. That's a girl's secret. I wasn't eavesdropping, I said, flashing a wicked grin. I just came to tell you we're leaving for the Kashmir region. I hear there are plenty of goats there. And Ya shivered as I walked away. She knew exactly what that smile meant. This wasn't just a test for my anti-tank rifles. It was a move to dominate the market. In a powder keg like Kashmir, proving my gear could crush India's god-tier tanks was the only way to solidify my reputation. We arrived at the forward command post, a lonely outpost perched high on a ridge, staring directly down at the approaching Indian forces. As I stepped out of the vehicle and gazed at the front line, the irony wasn't lost on me. While my classmates back home were buried in textbooks, I was walking the razor's edge of a brewing war, ready to prove that my secret weapon could silence every skeptic in the room. Is that really the legendary young arms dealer? I heard someone whisper behind me. Why does he have a little girl with him? She can't even be out of middle school yet. Don't be so sure, another voice muttered. Chinese people are notorious for not aging. I've seen 40-year-olds who look like they were barely 18. I ignored the gossip and climbed to the high point of the outpost. From here, the battlefield came into full view, a chaotic mess of rising smoke and the dull, rhythmic thud of artillery. The armored forces deployed in the Kashmir region were hopelessly thin, and the Indian tanks were practically running wild through the town below. I held up my thumb, squinting to gauge the distance. What are you measuring? Lin Chuan asked, mimicking my posture. Angle of elevation? I replied. Standard tanks, including our own, usually hit a maximum of 13 or 14 degrees. But because the terrain here is so rugged and mountainous, the Indian Argent tank was designed with an 18-degree angle. That sounds like bad news, she said, eyeing the ridge. This outpost probably won't hold. Don't worry, I assured her. We're out of their effective range. Lin Shu continued to measure with her thumb, her brow furrowed. They aren't firing at us yet, but they'll definitely target this position once they reach that ridge halfway up the hill. They can use their cannons to cover the infantry as they charge. Relax, I repeated. They won't get that far. While we tracked the enemy, a few hundred yards away, several soldiers clad in Pakistani uniforms were stealthily making their way down the mountainside. Thunderbolt, one of them murmured, his voice tight. When was the last time we operated in high-altitude terrain like this? 6 months ago, I think, the man called Thunderbolt replied. Too many missions, I'm starting to lose count. King of Hell, you and Old Fox take the independent rock formation to the left. B, you're with me. Through their comms, the crisp responses crackled. King of Hell, copy, over. Old Fox, copy, B, copy. This position is vital, the leader whispered. No wonder Commander Chen sent us specifically. It was true. If the Indian forces took this pass, they'd open a direct route toward our border. The Himalayas were a formidable natural barrier, but they couldn't stop an armored division if they secured the Kashmir corridor. It was the one weak point in our armor, and they were desperate to exploit it. On the surface, this was just another border flare-up in Kashmir, a territorial scuffle between two nations. But everyone knew the truth. India's ambitions were much larger. That's exactly why the military top brass was so wound up. I stood there calm, while the Special Forces team scrutinized my gear. Thunderbolt's gaze drifted to the sniper rifle I'd provided. The gun tested fine on the range, he muttered, sounding unconvinced. But hitting steel plates is one thing. Facing down an actual Argent tank in the field is another. You know how it is, field performance is usually 60 or 70% of lab results. B nodded, clearly anxious. Betting on a kid like Lin Chuan, I still think the higher-ups took a gamble. Enough, Thunderbolt cut in. Orders are orders. Check your zero, confirm your windage, and get ready. I listened in, unfazed. The air density up here is lower. I reminded them, my voice cutting through the tension. You're going to get less bullet drop than at sea level. Don't tell me I have to remind you how to aim. Old Fox was already gauging the wind, while B leaned into the scope as the primary observer. Thunderbolt took point. Wait for them to get close. When I say the word, we turn them into scrap. While the Lightning Commando unit prepped for the fight, the command post inside the outpost was buzzing with nerves. The word had come down. Argent tanks were closing in. Do you really think his rifle can handle them, sir? The adjutant asked, his voice wavering. We don't have a choice. General Banyam replied, his face a mask of iron. If this ridge falls, the entire Kashmir corridor opens up. They'll drive straight into the heart of the region. I'm the commander here. If we lose this, it's my head on the block. He stood on the ramparts, staring out at the horizon. There was no retreat. It was all in. My phone buzzed a video call from back home. I picked up, the screen filling with the bewildered faces of my classmates. Lin Chuan, where the hell are you? One of them yelled. It looks like the middle of nowhere. Weren't you supposed to be at an arms deal? Are you on vacation? I'm exactly where you asked me to be, I said, tilting the camera to show the smoke-choked battlefield. You wanted to see a real war zone? Take a look. Holy Lin Chuan, are you actually in a combat zone? Is that an enemy position? Are you out of your mind? Get out of there. You're the pride of our school, another classmate shouted, panic rising in his voice. The principal just hung your giant portrait on the wall of fame. You can't just go and get yourself killed. I chuckled, watching the horizon where the first silhouette of an Argent tank broke through the haze. Don't worry, I said, watching the first shell kick up dust nearby. I'm just getting started. Ranked right up there with Shu Jimo, I couldn't help but chuckle. The principal really had a high opinion of me. I just sold a shipment of hardware to the Pakistanis specifically designed to take down those Argent tanks. I'm just here to do a bit of quality control on the results. Lin Chuan, those are Indian tanks. A voice crackled through my phone, full of panic. I know you're a professional arms dealer, but you don't have to park yourself right in front of their gun barrels. Why aren't you shooting yet? We're not in range, I replied, staying calm. Target entering the designated zone, I muttered, my focus sharpening. Yama, confirm your final parameters. The terrain ahead was flat, open, and begging for a show. We could have pushed closer, but the stage was already set. Get ready for the show, I whispered. I'm about to set off some fireworks. I took a breath. Wind speed, 4.5 meters per second. Direction, 30 degrees west. The Coriolis effect was negligible, but I still adjusted for a 1 centimeter elevation lift. The tanks were rolling forward in a single file, 50 meters apart, cruising at 15 kilometers per hour. General, I said, catching Banyam's impatient side-eye. Don't rush it. I've been waiting for this all day. I watched the first shot connect. Well, Mr. Lin, the general asked, his voice tight. Did it fail to penetrate? It seems your weapons aren't living up to the hype. You don't understand my weapons yet, I said, a faint smirk playing on my lips. But don't worry, you're about to see exactly what they can do. The trajectory had been perfect. The round had kissed the turret's weak point exactly where I'd calculated. Look, someone whispered. The tank. It's smoking. Yama, keep firing, I commanded. Don't just stick to the turret weak points. Start hitting the other sections. Let's see how much stress this armor can really take. As the rhythm of gunfire picked up, I could feel the atmosphere shift. The soldiers who doubted my claims were starting to look at me differently. I used to think Lin Chuan was just talking a big game about those Arjun vulnerabilities, but seeing it for myself, I realized we'd all underestimated this arms dealer. The second shot didn't explode, one of the observers noted. No smoke either. Just a miss, I said, shrugging. Even my best days have a few holes in them, and I'm not talking about the target. I had Yama keep popping off shots at various points on the tanks, carefully framing each hit as a lucky fluke. Thunderbolt and I were on the same page. We didn't want the Indian brass to realize their Arjun tanks had been cracked open for good. As long as they clung to the delusion that these were one-off failures, they'd never bother to fix the inherent design flaws. It was perfect. The enemy's own arrogance was my best business partner. When a few soot-stained Indian soldiers scrambled out of a disabled tank, a ripple of laughter went through our ranks. Why are they running? One of the soldiers asked, gesturing at an intact tank nearby. That one looks fine. You're only seeing the surface, I said, leaning back. My armor-piercing rounds don't just punch holes. When they hit that high-grade steel, the kinetic energy creates a flash heat of 10,000 degrees. The round liquefies instantly, turning into a high-pressure molten jet that melts right through the hull. The soldier stared at me, dumbfounded. That jet wreaks havoc inside, turning everything flammable into a bonfire. Why do you know so much about this? I went to a polytechnic university, I replied with a shrug. They teach you how to blow up tanks in polytechnic school? The professor mentioned it in passing once or twice. It's a shame my college professors didn't give us a heads up that my degree would basically be in professional pyrotechnics. General Banyam stepped forward, shaking my hand firmly. Mr. Lin, thank you. Every soldier here will remember your contribution to this fight. That's exactly what I was hoping for, I said. Mr. Lin, the general continued, lowering his voice. Beyond these anti-tank rifles, what else do you have in your catalog? I think we could expand our partnership. As long as your military budget stays as healthy as your ambition, I can provide whatever you need. By evening, the news of a mystery weapon on the Kashmir front had already reached the highest levels of the Indian military command. In a high-stakes briefing, the commander was losing his patience. I want every detail. Nothing hidden. He barked at the survivors. We never even saw their weapon, sir, a trembling soldier admitted, but it tore through the armor like paper. Our commander was killed just standing behind the tank. The brass exchanged confused glances. Aside from a tank firing an AP round, what could possibly penetrate that armor? Did you see any lasers? We didn't see anything, sir. Just a massive sound, then the tank died. Then explain the scorch marks on your gear, the commander yelled, pointing at their charred uniforms. The electronics, they just vaporized. When we tried to retreat, the Pakistani soldiers opened fire. We had no choice but to leave the commander behind. The commander slammed his fist against the table, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. Where has your courage gone? Is this what an Indian soldier is reduced to? Aside from the gunfire, did you hear anything else? I demanded, my eyes sweeping over the shaking survivors. It sounded like a rifle, sir. An anti-tank sniper rifle. I let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. Are you joking? When did the Arjun become so fragile that a single rifle could turn it into a scrap heap? The soldiers fell silent, their heads bowed. They were terrified, and clearly, they had no intention of saying another word. I didn't have the patience for their excuses. Get them out of my sight. Send them straight to the military tribunal. Once the room was empty, I grabbed the satellite phone and dialed a familiar, high-priority number. Mr. President, I said, my voice tight. It's Maury. Maury, what's going on with the war in Kashmir? I need an explanation, sir. An explanation? I've been asleep for all of 2 hours, and you're waking me up to ask if I know what's happening on the battlefield? Do you honestly think I track every skirmish? Mr. President, our plan to secure the Kashmir Pass has failed. The Pakistanis, they've acquired a weapon capable of neutralizing our tanks. There was a long silence on the other end. Repeat that. Our reconnaissance unit was wiped out. Not a single tank returned. This happened this afternoon. Are you telling me you drove your armor into a ditch? The president snapped. The tankers didn't do anything wrong. They were just scouting, and they were taken out halfway through. All of them. Just gone. Wiped out by rifles? Don't you have a retreat route? How does a tank get destroyed by a rifle? We only had one route. but the tanks were neutralized immediately. The enemy only fired twice. My entire unit is gone. Only a few men made it back. The president sighed, his tone thick with disbelief. Are you drunk? Are you telling me a joke? Sir, I assure you, this isn't a joke. It sounds absurd, I know, but it happened. I trust my men. They didn't make a tactical error. The enemy's technology is simply overwhelming. I paused, taking a breath to steady myself. I recall you saying the United States has the world's most advanced anti-tank sniper technology. You promised us your full, unwavering support. Mr. Mori, what exactly are you implying? The president's voice grew cold. Are you suggesting that I supplied Pakistan with the weapons to take out your Arjans? Are you questioning my integrity as a head of state? Mr. President, I could hardly believe it myself at first, I said, my hand trembling slightly. But the reports are clear. Based on the damage patterns, the circular blast holes, it was an anti-tank sniper rifle. It's an American caliber problem. It has to be an anti-tank sniper rifle. Honestly, who knows what your soldiers are thinking? They're the ones who managed to abandon a tank in the middle of a battlefield, so what's left for them to screw up? Mr. President, my men are the bravest warriors we have. They aren't cowards. Who knows what those crazy Indian soldiers have rattling around in their heads? Fine, your soldiers are brave. Can we move on? Just tell me what happened on the ground, or I'll never figure out what went wrong. The blast holes on the Arjans are all in the exact same spot right on the turret. Is it possible the design has a fatal flaw? I asked, though I knew the answer. Given the track record of those engineers, it was practically a guarantee. Mori, think, the president countered. Is it possible you leaked the design specs? Maybe someone used that intel to pull off a precision strike. Impossible. Even with that weak point, the angle is so extreme that no conventional weapon could punch through. It would take a specialized anti-tank rifle to hit it with that kind of surgical accuracy. Are you certain it was an anti-tank rifle? Dead certain. They targeted the thinnest point, where the armor is barely 200 millimeters. One shot was all it took. I hesitated, then pushed harder. I recall the US, claiming to have the world's best anti-tank sniper tech. Mori, what are you getting at? Are you trying to shift the blame or test my patience? The president's tone chilled. Our anti-tank rifle is still in R&D, there's no finished product to sell. Besides, if you'd reinforced the armor properly, you wouldn't be in this mess. Go weld on some reactive armor and call it a day. I've already added external reactive plating, I groaned, but all that did was turn a one-shot kill into a two-shot kill. I'm talking about fixing the root cause, not applying bandages. If you want a real fix, redesign the interior. That would take months of structural changes. We don't have that kind of time. Then patch the holes, and I'll look into who leaked the intel. I promise you, the US didn't leak our tech, and we certainly didn't sell it to anyone. Keep the front line static for now, don't do anything rash. I hung up, feeling like I was talking to a wall. The president sighed, clearly exhausted by having a pig teammate like me. He immediately summoned his military advisor. Forget about Mori, he muttered, rubbing his temples. Tell me, what stage are we really at with our anti-tank rifle development? 200 millimeters of armor? No, our rifles aren't there yet, I admitted, reviewing the specs. We're capped at a 150 millimeter penetration, and we only have a handful of prototypes. That leaves the question, what actually punched through the Arjun tanks? I leaned into the desk, my eyes narrowing. I want a deep dive on every foreign national, private contractor, and black market arms dealer operating in Pakistan. Find them all. Mr. President, my aide stammered, there was a report of a Chinese arms dealer in Peshawar. He'd been meeting with Pakistani officers, but we haven't tracked his exit. What? Why am I just hearing this now? We flagged him as a small timer, just another vulture looking to make a quick buck off the conflict, so we didn't prioritize it. Find out exactly who he is now, I snapped. I felt a migraine forming behind my eyes. I'd accounted for every major military power, yet somehow, I'd been blindsided by a low-level arms dealer. Meanwhile, in a lavish palace in Peshawar, I was busy reviewing the latest logistics report with Anran. Boss, General Bangham's adjutant wants 30 more Barretts, along with 3,000 high-velocity Witchheart armor-piercing rounds. I waved a hand dismissively. It's only a $30 million deal. You can greenlight those next time without asking. Oh, and tell the Pakistanis the ammo's on the house. Anran scoffed, crossing her arms. So generous. Casual charity of several $1,000,000, just like that. They're struggling with their economy. I'm just doing a bit of poverty alleviation. A bit? My bank account is starving, and I don't see you handing out any poverty relief to me, she countered. I grinned. Hey, you show me a little initiative, maybe help me warm up the bed tonight, and I might consider a bonus. In your dreams. Despite her pout, she got to work. The Chinese military also just put in an order for 100 Barretts, including ammo. Total contract value is 100 million. I let out a soft huff. The Chinese military is pinching pennies, aren't they? Only 100 units. And don't think I don't know their game, they're just looking for a prototype to reverse engineer. Good luck with that. They'll never match my proprietary tech. Anran tallied the numbers. So, what's your total take on this round? About 100 million, give or take. Honestly, this small fry stuff is getting boring. 100 million, and you're complaining? You really are a wicked capitalist. You're thinking too small. This is just the appetizer. Just then, Dabai sprinted into the room, breathless. "Boss, we've got a visitor from the Crescent Legion." A man stepped into the light, radiating an aura of polished danger. "Mr. Lin, I've heard much about your work. I'm here for a serious conversation." "You came to the right place," I replied, rising to meet him. "And who do I have the pleasure of speaking with?" "My name is a mouthful, so just call me Aladdin." "As for who I represent, I trust you're familiar with the Crescent Legion." The Crescent Legion. Those guys were the backbone of the resistance movement in the occupied territories. This was about to get interesting. The Crescent Legion was the third largest faction in the country, holding the Northeast as their personal fortress, with over 300,000 troops. Their commander had a name so long it took up a whole page, but he usually went by Aladdin. "I'm surprised you know so much about us, Mr. Lin," Aladdin said, eyeing me carefully. "I make it a point to study my biggest clients," I replied, leaning back in my chair. "Then you know why I'm here." "Before we talk numbers, I need to know where you stand on our cause." I smiled, keeping my tone strictly professional. "I'm a merchant, Aladdin. If you have the currency, I have the goods. My politics aren't for sale." "Mr. Lin, we aren't as weak as we look. We control 20% of the nation's oil fields. Money isn't the problem, equipment is. The Americans have their eyes on us and have locked down our supply lines. You'll have to deal with that risk." "I'm well aware of the situation," I said, unbothered. "Are you sure? If the Americans catch you shipping us hardware, they won't just sanction you, they'll launch a decapitation strike." I shrugged. Business 101. The risk is always proportional to the reward. Besides, with my connections to the Chinese military, I'm confident they can handle any trouble that comes knocking. Aladdin searched my face, a flicker of understanding dawning in his eyes. He seemed to realize I wasn't just some local middleman. "So, Mr. Lin, what kind of hardware can you provide?" "What do you need?" "The Crescent Legion's biggest headache is the American M1A2 Abrams. We need an anti-tank sniper rifle, something more powerful than what you've been selling." I shook my head. "No, truth is, there isn't a sniper rifle on the planet that can crack an M1A2's armor. As it stands, that tank is the undisputed king of the battlefield." Aladdin's shoulders slumped, his disappointment palpable. "But," I continued, "why settle for a rifle when we can skip the middleman? Let's try a different approach." He blinked. "I don't follow. What if I provided you with the M1A2S themselves? It would be a poetic irony to watch the Americans get a taste of their own medicine on the battlefield, wouldn't it?" Aladdin froze, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Can you actually supply M1A2S? Don't worry about my sources. I just want to see the look on the Americans' faces when they realize their own tech is aiming back at them. I want to buy them immediately. If we can pull this off, the Crescent Legion will be untouchable. The Americans will be driven out, and you'll be a guest of honor for every faction and religious order in the region." I tapped my chin. "Do you have crews that can actually operate them?" "Plenty," he assured me. "We have former Republican Guard members. They were a tank-heavy force to begin with." "Good. The official procurement cost is about $6 million a unit. Since I'm moving these through black market channels, there's going to be a premium." Aladdin didn't flinch. "I understand completely." "Good," I said, satisfied. "Since the Crescent Legion has decided to treat me like a friend, let's talk business." "I'll give you a friend's rate, $12 million a unit," I said, leaning back. Ayn Rand audibly gasped. I could practically hear her brain trying to reconcile how I'd just doubled the price without even breaking a sweat. Aladdin, however, looked like he'd just won the lottery. He was beaming, clearly relieved that I hadn't hit him with an even more astronomical figure. "Mr. Lin, the Crescent Legion will remember this day," Aladdin said, his voice thick with genuine emotion. "I personally feel your support for our cause. This friendship is truly priceless." "How many are we talking about?" I asked. "My initial plan is to outfit a full armored regiment. That would be about 100 tanks." "Consider it done. I'll have the initial samples ready for delivery in a month. You pick the drop point." Aladdin stood up, bowing slightly. "I cannot thank you enough. I'll have 30% of the payment transferred within 15 days, and I hope to have the remainder of the order fulfilled within 6 months. Easy. As soon as the deposit hits, the shipment moves." With the deal sealed, Aladdin took his leave. Ayn Rand was still standing there, looking like she'd seen a ghost. She just watched me finalize a $1.2 billion contract in the span of a casual conversation. It finally clicked why I hadn't been bothered by the Chinese military's pocket change order earlier. "So," she finally managed, her voice shaky. "How much exactly did you make on that deal?" "About $1 billion, give or take." $1 billion? And he was happy about the price hike. That much money could buy a fleet of fighter jets. I sighed, looking at her with an amused expression. "Your lack of experience is showing, Ayn Rand. Tell me, other than me, who else in the world is willing to provide high-end, heavy-duty hardware to the Crescent Legion? This is a seller's market, not a buyer's. Money is just paper. What matters is having the connections to actually acquire the gear." "But doubling the price? Isn't that a bit harsh? Where else is he going to buy M1A2S? If anything, I was being generous. If you have the leverage, why not just bleed them for more? Wouldn't more profit be better? I'm playing the long game. I want them to have enough firepower to change the landscape. A little bit of generosity now will return tenfold in the future. You'll see." I stood up, stretching. "Pack your bags. We're going home. It's time to get back to the queen of the island lifestyle." Ayn Rand blinked. "You? A queen? You clearly haven't looked in a mirror lately." A true queen is someone who commands her own kingdom. I own this island, and I rule it. And your brother? What does he think about that? I smirked, jealous. If you want to be a queen, you could always marry him and get there in one step. Welcome to my private manufacturing facility. Ayn Rand froze as she stared at the sprawling, high-tech factory floor before us. Thousands of robotic arms moved in a mesmerizing, synchronized dance, churning out high-grade weaponry with terrifying efficiency. She looked around, panicked. Who are you? What is this place? How did you get me in here? I just gestured toward the shadows. Relax, that's just Dabai, he's one of my guys. Show him the goods. Let him see what real engineering looks like, I said, leaving Ayn Rand to marvel at the production lines while I slipped away to the new facility. I pulled up my system panel. Name, Lin Chuan. Age, 18. Funds, $48.8 million. Military points, 158,000. System, redeem the tank production line for the M1A2, I commanded. Cost, 30,000 points. Purchase confirmed. After installing the new line, I retrieved Ayn Rand and we headed out. She gave me a suspicious look. Where did you go? And where did you get the raw materials for a tank? Is it really that hard to get? I shrugged. I wasn't about to explain that while I moved bulk materials through traditional channels, the rare, proprietary components were coming straight out of my system's inventory. I was busy checking my messages when a notification pinged. The factory heads were asking for instructions. Lin Chuan, where are you? A voice blared through my phone. It was someone from my university. Wait, is that a tank behind you? How are you holding an M1A2? I didn't know you could manufacture those. I build what I need, I replied dryly. The school has been looking for you everywhere. Your work on the Kashmir front made waves. The military wanted to present you with a formal commendation for your contributions, but you've been a ghost. I sighed. What do you want? Right, sorry, I almost forgot the main reason for calling. The dean wants you to attend our school anniversary. He personally asked for you to be there. Fine, I'll be there, I muttered. Initially, I thought about dodging it, but then a thought struck me. As an arms dealer, I couldn't exactly buy commercial airtime to advertise my wares, but an elite school anniversary, that was a massive stage. Plot twist, it worked. If I played my cards right, the event could be my ultimate branding opportunity. The only problem, how do I showcase weapons without getting arrested for violating domestic laws? Firearms and tanks were definitely a no-go in a school setting. That's a tomorrow problem. Why am I coming along instead of your sister? Ayn Rand asked as we prepped for the trip. It's a high school reunion. Bringing my sister would be weird, and you know how she gets. Plus, you're decent at playing the part, and your brain is actually useful. I need you to help me brainstorm a way to make a splash at the anniversary without catching a felony. You want to advertise at your old high school. Exactly. Any ideas? As I left the island, I had no idea my return would spiral into a high-stakes naval standoff, fueled by American conspiracies and foreign provocations. Meanwhile, back in Washington, President Jack sat at his desk, staring down a report from the CIA deputy director. Pluto, are you telling me that the anti-tank rifles showing up on the battlefield are our own Barrett prototypes? That is correct, sir, the deputy director replied, his face pale. Jack slammed his hand on the desk. We entrusted you with our most sensitive security secrets, and now you're telling me our latest technology has been walking out the front door? Save the excuses for someone who cares, Pluto. A failure is a failure, and I'm not looking for a scapegoat. Pluto looked like he wanted to vanish into the floorboards. Sir, this isn't just about negligence. The weapons appearing on the battlefield, they aren't ours. Not officially. I leaned in, my blood running cold. What are you talking about? Your report specifically said they were Barrett prototypes. That's what I thought, too. My advisors in the Kashmir theater sent over the specs. The optics and the casings look like the Barrett XM109, but the math doesn't add up. The XM109 has a theoretical armor penetration of 150 millimeters. The weapons we're seeing on the ground? They're punching through over 200 millimeters of armor, shredding the Argent tanks like they're made of tin. I drummed my fingers on the desk. It's not rocket science. Change the metallurgy, tweak the projectile shape, switch the core to depleted uranium, and you boost your penetration. That part I get. What I don't get is how China got their hands on an XM109 that technically doesn't even exist yet. That's exactly the problem, sir, Pluto stammered. The XM109 is still in the concept phase. We haven't even finished the blueprints. It's barely a scribble on a napkin. If the design wasn't finished, how was it already turning tanks into scrap metal in a war zone? Was I losing my mind, or was the world breaking? I'm on a whiskey diet. I've lost 3 days already. Who sold them this gear? I demanded. Pluto slid a photograph across the desk. I stared at it, my brain stalling. It wasn't a Chinese general. It wasn't even a soldier. It was a kid, a high school student from China, named Lin Chuan. You're telling me this boy is the one supplying the Pakistanis with Barrett-grade tech? Everything points to him, sir. Give me the file. Everything. He started in the Gulf of Thailand, running gear with the Kun brothers. He's had dealings with a few rogue Chinese mercenaries we've been tracking for years. Recently, he popped up in Peshawar. He's clearly acting on orders from the Chinese military. I narrowed my eyes. Wait, you mean those lunatics on our most wanted list? The very same, sir. They're not even finishing their degree programs, and they're already unleashing monsters like this on the world. I spat, and I hear he's been in private talks with high-ranking officers from the Crescent Legion. If he's arming them, the entire region is about to go up in flames. I didn't care about the politics anymore. Pluto, get your best people from the CIA and wipe this kid off the map. I want him gone before he causes any more damage. Pluto hesitated. Sir, it won't be that simple. Since when has the CIA become so timid that you're scared of a teenage arms dealer? It's not fear, sir. If he dies, we cut off the supply chain to those mercenaries, yes, but his ties to the Chinese military are deep. If we touch him, the Chinese special forces will retaliate in kind. They'll start targeting our own merchants, and we'll have a shadow war that we can't control. We're going to execute a decapitation strike, but it has to be Lin Chuan, and it has to be done carefully, I said, leaning back. It's not impossible, Pluto mused, his eyes narrowing. As long as the operation can't be traced back to us, China has no legal grounds for retaliation. Tell me your plan. We let a third party handle it. We have plenty of allies who'd love to do us a favor. Besides, I don't want him dead immediately. There are secrets locked in that kid's head that we need to extract first. My satellites have been tracking him. He's expected to leave the Western Pacific and head home to Donghai City soon. Perfect. Patch me through to the Japanese government. I pushed the yacht to its limit. I was done playing around. I needed to be back on home soil. I cut through the Eastern Strait in a single day, crossing into Chinese territorial waters. Boss, Anren warned, squinting at the radar. We've got company. 3 Japanese warships, 2 gunboats, and a light frigate. They're forming an interception line. I never thought our first mission after securing this ship would be bullying a civilian yacht, the Japanese commander, Kobayashi, muttered to his XO. Sir, it's a simple task, but the reward is immense. The Prime Minister himself ordered this. Succeed and your family's legacy will be restored. Kobayashi nodded. Signal the gunboats. Intercept them before they hit the Chinese exclusion zone. Should we tell them to be careful, sir? He's a known arms dealer. He might be armed. Kobayashi let out a dry laugh. What is a yacht going to do? Dent our hull? Tell Sakata and Suda to hold fire. We need him alive. The American president specifically requested it. Anren tapped her screen. Boss, they're broadcasting on an open channel. They're claiming we've violated their waters and are ordering us to stop for inspection. They said they'll sink us if we don't comply. Wi-Fi is my favorite household appliance, but right now, I could really use a missile battery. Japanese waters? I scoffed. They've got a lot of nerve. Anren's face tightened. As someone with a military background, seeing these clowns challenge our sovereignty was pushing her over the edge. They're gunning for us, aren't they? We're going to be forced to stop. Let them come. It's just 2 dinky gunboats. I'm not losing sleep over them. Lin Chuan, do you actually have contraband on this boat? She asked, her voice dropping. If not, we could just play along and wait for our military or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to bail us out. I'm an arms dealer, Anren. What do you think? She groaned, but I turned to my AI systems. Dahe to buy, ignore them. Full throttle. If these guys try to block our path, ram them. Boss, you want to ram a gunboat with a yacht? I'd like to see my next birthday. These guys spend their days harassing our fishing boats. Today, they get to see who's actually built tougher. Understood, boss. Back on the Japanese frigate, the captain watched us through his binoculars. Captain, why does it look like the yacht is speeding toward us? They're desperate to reach the Chinese zone. He laughed. Naive. They really think we're just playing a game of tag. They'll realize their mistakes soon enough. Let them enjoy the thrill of the hunt while it lasts. Watching the Japanese gunboat buckle under the impact was nothing short of therapeutic. How is that yacht moving so fast? The Japanese captain stammered, his bravado instantly evaporating. Are they trying to commit suicide? Impossible. Our reinforced plating is designed to shrug off anything smaller than a destroyer. If they're ramming us, they're just digging their own graves. Ha! He laughed, but it turned into a screech as metal shrieked against metal. In all my years, I've done the ramming. I've never seen such suicidal idiocy. What has happened to the Chinese? Have they forgotten what a naval vessel even looks like? My confidence depends on good lighting, and I'm currently looking like a god of destruction. Anren was practically hyperventilating beside me. Lin Chuan, don't be insane. Even if you're angry, you can't just throw your life away like this. Relax, I'm just scaring them, I said, though my eyes remained locked on the target. Dubai, full throttle. Lock onto their bow, don't miss. Confirmed, boss. Now I'm really doing it. The collision was spectacular. Their gunboat crumpled like a soda can, while my vessel didn't even shudder. Report, Dahe. Status? Boss, no structural damage. The only repair required is a fresh coat of paint on the bow. Anren stared at the carnage, then back at me, her brain clearly struggling to reboot. Is this some kind of joke? A yacht hits a gunboat at full speed, the gunboat sinks, and you're complaining about paint? You know the displacement of those Japanese gunboats, right? I asked, enjoying her shock. Mine is 4,000 tons. And you're wondering about the durability? Fiberglass shouldn't win against naval armor. Fiberglass? You're underestimating this ship, Anren. It's constructed from advanced high-polymer materials. It's 6 times harder than military-grade steel and twice as strong as the HY-100 steel used on American aircraft carrier decks. She looked at me, trembling. Where did you get this boat? I just smiled. It came as a system bonus when I unlocked the military factory, but that wasn't something I needed to explain. Bye. Lock onto the second gunboat, ramming speed. If they wanted to play blockade, they were going to learn exactly how much I enjoyed teaching lessons. Look over there, a Japanese sailor whispered, his face pale. Is that a Chinese yacht sinking? Wait, no, that's our gunboat. Impossible. Our gunboats could crush 10 of those things without a scratch. It's coming right for us. Open fire. Now. Negative. This is a disputed zone, and our orders are to take them alive. The officer panicked. Call Kobayashi. Tell him we're retreating to the frigate. Kobayashi-sama, the radio crackled. Sakata's vessel has gone down. What? Did the Chinese Navy intervene in a disputed zone? Don't they fear us? It wasn't the Chinese Navy, sir, the voice choked out. It was the yacht. Kobayashi froze. Are you absolutely sure? Kobayashi-sama, the radio crackled again, trembling. It was the yacht. It rammed Sakata's vessel into the seabed. I leaned back, listening to the chaos unfold through my sensors. My GPS and I are in a toxic relationship, but this connection is crystal clear. How could they have been taken down so fast? Why wasn't I notified of the distress call earlier? Kobayashi roared. I'm sorry, sir. Everything happened in seconds. I'm only just receiving the updates now. Get Suda to our waters at maximum speed. Even if it's a disputed zone, I don't care about the rules of engagement anymore. Get to his position before that Chinese boat finishes the job. Through the comms, I heard the Japanese frigates broadcast, frantic and desperate. Attention yacht, cease your assault on our naval vessels immediately. You have violated Japanese territory. Heave to and surrender, or we will open fire. This is your final warning. Ayn Rand looked at me, her knuckles white as she gripped the console. Boss, are you going to reply to them? I didn't even look up. Dabai, you've been with me long enough. You know my style. Understood, boss. Initiating ramming maneuver. On the frigate, Kobayashi was losing his mind. Sakata is sending another distress signal. He's lost all power. Tell them to fire. If the target wants to die, grant them their wish. Sir, they can't. To hit top speed and reach our waters, they jettisoned all their ammunition. I laughed. This self-defense force was a joke. They didn't even have the instinct to survive, just the instinct to beg. If overthinking burned calories, I'd be an Olympian. Prepare the missiles, Kobayashi shrieked. But sir, the orders were to capture the target alive. Capture? Look at the situation. We've been humiliated. The only way to scrub this stain away is to wipe them off the map. Fire the harpoon missiles. Anren's voice rose to a panicked pitch. Boss, stop playing around. We're hitting speeds that rival fighter jets. This isn't a game. You're right, it is a bit boring. Let's add some speed. Suddenly, the sky lit up. The Japanese frigate had unleashed a volley of missiles. Watching them streak toward us was almost beautiful, a lethal, high-tech fireworks show. That's a harpoon? Professional grade. Wait, how do you have a CIWS system? Anren stared at the defensive turrets swiveling into place. Only sovereign navies have this kind of gear. I'm an arms dealer, Anren. It'd be weird if I didn't have a little hardware on board, I said casually. They just fired missiles at us. Aren't you going to retreat? I shook my head. Confucius said, to receive without returning is impolite. We're a nation of etiquette, and I'm a firm believer in tit for tat. If these little guys want to gift me missiles, it'd be incredibly rude not to send something back. What are you doing, missiles? It's like they think they're the only ones with a stash. I grinned. Dahei launched the collection. A sleek, dark shape tore through the air, trailing a long white wake behind it. Anren watched the horizon, her jaw dropping. This yacht wasn't just made of some impossible, indestructible polymer. It was a floating fortress, equipped with naval-grade defensive systems and offensive missile capabilities. On the bridge of the Japanese frigate, the radar began to scream. I stood at the bridge, staring out the viewport in absolute disbelief. My state-of-the-art anti-ship missiles had failed to sink a mere yacht. Kobayashi-kun, I muttered, my voice barely audible. Have you ever seen a yacht equipped with defensive fire systems? That was a CIWS, a phalanx system. How is that even possible? He stammered, pale as a ghost. I know he's an arms dealer, but this is insanity. Before we could even process the absurdity, the fire control radar erupted with a piercing, rhythmic screech. Warning! Warning! Incoming missile detected. All hands to battle stations. Prepare for emergency defensive measures. Activate the CIWS now. I roared. Sir, a voice trembled from the gunnery station. We don't have a CIWS. What do you mean, you don't have one? This is a state-of-the-art frigate purchased from the Royal Federation. The Imperial Navy cut costs. Sir, they opted out of the integrated system, planning to install American units later. They didn't arrive in time for this mission, and we assumed a yacht wouldn't fire back. My life has too many loading screens. What about the anti-aircraft cannons? Intercept it. Sir, it's too close. The lock-on won't stabilize. Brace for impact. I knew the outcome before the words even left my lips. I closed my eyes, waiting for the ship to tear apart, but the explosion never came. Kobayashi-sama, we're saved. The missile failed. I looked up, dazed. Above us, a massive cloud of black smoke was billowing out, completely engulfing the frigate. I felt a sudden, agonizing itch, a crawling sensation, as if thousands of microscopic needles were burrowing through my clothes into my skin. What is that stuff? Kobayashi gasped, clawing at his uniform. Is it toxic? Those damn Chinese. They're playing games. I spat. It's not a missile, it's an oversized smoke canister. They're closing in for a ram. The crew went deathly pale. After watching that yacht shatter 2 gunboats, they knew exactly who held the title for the hardest hull in these waters. Evasive maneuvers. Full reverse. Fire everything, torpedoes, cannons, whatever you have left. I want that yacht on the ocean floor. Sir, the ship is dead. Controls are unresponsive. Radar, comms, weapons, everything is offline. My knees buckled. I nearly collapsed to the deck as the truth slammed into me. That wasn't a smoke bomb. It was some kind of specialized electronic warfare payload. I stared into the distance, watching the yacht hurtle toward us like a high-speed executioner. A cold, hollow dread settled into my bones. Back on the yacht, Anran squinted at the horizon, watching the Wisby frigate drift aimlessly. What's going on over there? Why did they stop firing? They're just sitting there. I leaned back, watching the display with a smirk. They aren't choosing to stop, Anran. They don't have a choice anymore. Why? Anran asked, staring at the dissipating smoke. It wasn't a standard warhead, I explained, leaning back with a grin. It was a graphite bomb. It creates that black firework display and fries every circuit board on that ship. The whole vessel is effectively a floating paperweight now. Why would I waste money on fresh paint by ramming them again? So what's the play? You're not going to ram them? They're dead in the water. It'd be like kicking a puppy. Oh, look, they've hoisted a white flag. Anran grabbed the binoculars, her jaw dropping. They actually surrendered. What are you going to do with a frigate? It's a gift-wrapped arms shipment, isn't it? Who am I to refuse a delivery? You're an arms dealer, not a pirate. I haven't even finished my probationary period, and now I'm an accessory to grand naval theft. Across the water, the Japanese soldiers looked like they were attending their own funerals. Kobayashi wasn't stupid. He realized the moment those graphite missiles hit that this wasn't a skirmish, it was a systematic dismantling. He ordered the crew to the lifeboats, knowing any attempt at resistance would be suicide. Their lives were in my hands now. I let them go. A little mercy goes a long way, though leaving them in lifeboats in the middle of the ocean under the summer sun was, perhaps, a bit of a groundbreaking experience for them. Hey, bring us alongside, I ordered. I want to inspect the merchandise. Anran followed me onto the eerily silent deck, looking profoundly uncomfortable. She just wanted a peaceful trip home, not to end up on an international wanted list. We reached the central weapon bay, and my breath hitched. There, resting in the cradle, was a long, tapered missile. Is that a ballistic missile? Anran whispered, her face draining of color. That's a U.S. sword missile, 5,500-kilometer range. It's practically intercontinental. So, the Japanese weren't just patrolling, I noted. They were playing with fire. They're insane. Do they want to start a war? They're just deluding themselves. They can't do anything with this. Boss, the central control circuit is fried, but it's an easy fix. I can have this ship back online in an hour. Perfect. Get to it. I started laughing, a deep, genuine sound that made Anran jump. What is it? Why are you laughing? I just figured out what I'm taking to the school anniversary celebration. She stared at the massive missile, then back at me, horrified. You can't be serious. You're going to bring an ICBM? That's completely illegal. You really need to brush up on the fine print of our laws, Anran. Tanks and small arms. Strictly regulated. Missiles. The legal code is remarkably quiet on the matter. You're actually insane, she groaned. I prefer the term well-prepared. This is going to be the biggest advertisement I've ever had. As we returned to my yacht and left the crippled frigate behind, I didn't know that back at the Southeast Military Region headquarters, several high-ranking officers were already staring at a giant LED screen, watching our every move. The conference room was buzzing with tension as the emergency classified meeting began. High-ranking officers from the Southeast Military Region gathered around a massive LED display, their expressions grim. The East China Sea Defense Force reported a clash in the disputed zone. A staff officer began, gesturing to the screen. A yacht encountered a Japanese fleet, and things escalated. A yacht? One of the generals asked, his brow furrowed. Fan explained. Fan Tianlei manipulated the console, and a sleek, white vessel appeared on the screen. It sounds impossible, but this yacht engaged the Japanese fleet in a high-speed chase. It rammed and sank 2 of their patrol gunboats. Then it traded missile fire with one of their frigates. The room went silent. A yacht taking on a frigate? It sounded like a fever dream. It's confirmed, Fan continued. Our naval patrols witnessed it, and dozens of Chinese fishing boats in the area recorded the entire engagement. The footage is already online. The news is spreading like wildfire. I'd wager over 10 million people have seen it by now. And the Japanese? Are they just taking this lying down? The general asked. That's the thing. Another officer chimed in, a look of sudden realization dawning on him. I remember now, the Japanese government filed an immediate, frantic protest with our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. At the time, we were confused as to why they were acting so erratic. Out of diplomatic courtesy, we sent them a secret response consisting of a single word, scram. Now it makes sense. They thought our military had launched a direct strike. The room erupted in laughter. Those guys spend all day patrolling disputed waters with malicious intent. They've been begging for a reality check, and now they've got one. Let's see how they justify their patrols now. It's a self-inflicted wound, and they'll have to swallow their pride and keep quiet, because admitting a yacht humiliated them would be far too embarrassing. The general nodded in agreement. Fair point. Have we identified the yacht? Where is it now? Our scouts report it's currently in international waters just outside our territory. It doesn't look like it plans to dock. We still haven't confirmed the owner, though. What about the flag? Is there a clear image? Fan zoomed in on a high-definition freeze frame of the stern. A distinct, bold flag billowed in the wind. It's him. It's Lin Chuan, I muttered, my heart skipping a beat. My mind raced. How could a civilian possess such lethal hardware? How did his yacht shrug off a frigate and 2 gunboats without a single scratch? Suddenly, an aide interrupted. Report. Commander, Violet is requesting an emergency secure line. I nodded, waving him over. Put her through. This is He Jijun Violet. I need an immediate status report on Lin Chuan. Commander, Violet's voice crackled through the comms, breathless and urgent. I have critical information that needs to be reported immediately. Where are you right now? Are you safe? I'm fine, Commander. No immediate danger. I'm in the Donghai Commercial District right now, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Lin Chuan is meeting with a smuggling ring. Why does he need them? Is he trying to destabilize our internal security? Not at all. He's just using them for transport. But Commander, regarding that clash with the Japanese fleet, it's worse than the reports suggest. Go on. That yacht isn't just a pleasure craft. It's bristling with CIWS turrets and graphite missiles technology that outclasses even our own military hardware. And I have a sinking suspicion that what we've seen is barely half of his true arsenal. I heard a sharp intake of breath over the comms. When I glanced back at the conference room, I saw Commander He Jijun and General Gao Shiwei staring at each other, their faces drained of color. For high-ranking military leaders, they were looking remarkably shaken by the capability of a single arms dealer. Where is he getting this stuff? The general hissed. Hang on, let me check. Boss says to hurry up. We're moving out. I muttered, turning away from the comms for a second. I know. I'm just calling home to say I'm safe. Violet, the commander's voice cut through. Are you sure you're safe? If this mission gets compromised, I'm ordering you to withdraw immediately. It's not dangerous, Commander. He doesn't even care. I've learned about his secrets, his yacht, his factories. He has factories? Yes. On Queen Island in Kiribati. They produce everything from AKM-94S to heavy machine guns and mortars. That anti-tank sniper rifle we saw earlier, that was his own work. And since the factory got an upgrade, he's even started manufacturing M1A2 tanks. The silence in that conference room was heavy enough to crush a man. General Gao, I know you're listening. I continued, pressing the advantage. I don't have time to go over the factory logs, but there's an urgent situation. Lin Chuan just hijacked a Japanese frigate. And that ship was carrying a Sword Series intercontinental ballistic missile. Those Japanese fanatics, the general roared. What on earth does a gunrunner want with an ICBM? Where is that missile now? It's on the flatbed truck right behind me. Lin Chuan's planning to drag it to the Xinying High School anniversary celebration. He wants to put it on display as an advertisement. He's taking an ICBM to a high school anniversary. Violet, are you done talking to your boss yet? We have to go. I heard Anran shouting in the background. Wait, boss? You're a high school student, Anran. I muttered, quickly finishing my call. What do you mean, reporting? Who was that? Who knows? I've always suspected the East China Military Region's General Gao might be your father, Anran teased. I'm surnamed An. Why would I have a father surnamed Gao? Illegitimate daughter, perhaps? Stop talking nonsense. I snapped. Where are we heading? The school anniversary. You knew that. Back in the command center, the mood had shifted from shock to pure panic. How long until the special forces can reach Xinying High? The commander barked. 20 minutes, sir? Get a move on. Deploy an entire company and get the EOD teams and technical experts mobilized now. We're heading over there right now. Drive straight in, I commanded. As we rolled onto the campus, the school's voice boomed over the PA system, droning on about 80 years of glorious history and our bright future. Class of 2024, I believe you will excel in your entrance exams and bring glory to your alma mater. New English High has produced legends like Xu Zhimo and countless pillars of the nation. Now, let's welcome a distinguished alumnus. Chen Ergu, a construction contractor and CEO of the Red Hair Labor Services firm, swaggered onto the stage. Man, this century-old school has really hit rock bottom, someone whispered behind me. They're reduced to letting a foreman hold court? Don't underestimate him, another retorted. He's worth over 100 million. I saw a feature on him in the paper once, something called Chen Ergo's Freak Life. What paper? The free rag they hand out on the street? Yeah, that one. That rag is self-published, by the way. Glad you're reading. I muttered, but my comment was drowned out by the thunderous roar of an engine. A massive heavy-duty truck rumbled through the gates, grinding to a halt in the middle of the ceremony. Whoa, why is there a semi-truck on campus? Must be Chen Ergo's doing. Didn't he say he was repaving the school roads? Probably hauling construction materials. At an anniversary celebration? That's tacky. The awkward silence was palpable. The principal stuttered through a few lines to save face before scurrying off the stage toward the truck. As soon as I stepped out of the cab, his face lit up with genuine relief. Mr. Lin, you're finally here. I've been waiting forever. Take it easy, principal. I made it, didn't I? The ceremony is in the middle of the Distinguished Alumni segment. Come up on stage with me. The students have no idea you're back. It'll be a total surprise. Hey, is that your star graduate? Chen Ergu sneered, eyes narrowing as he looked my way. Mr. Lin, ignore him, the principal whispered. He's just bitter about the school's progress. Just get on stage. A foreman is one thing, Chen scoffed, raising his voice. But this guy? I bet he's not even as accomplished as I am. Better not let him up there. He'll just embarrass you. A murmur rippled through the crowd of students. Look, it's Lin Chuan. He actually showed up. I knew he'd come back. Dudes, do you think he remembered our little suggestion? What suggestion? I don't remember any proposal. The bring a missile to the anniversary bit. Seriously though, that was a joke. I know he's an arms dealer, but bringing a missile to a school function. That's way too insane, even for him. In this country, where would he even get that kind of hardware? The principal was still at the mic, sweating through his suit. Students, I'm sure you all remember Lin Chuan. As an elite graduate of New English, he is our pride and joy. Let's give a thunderous round of applause for our international trade expert, Lin Chuan. A ripple of snickers broke out in the crowd. International trade expert? He's barely older than us. I bet he's never even left the country, unless you count buying a truckload of bananas in Southeast Asia. You guys have no idea what you're talking about, someone from my former class shot back, eyes blazing. Lin Chuan's a man who's actually seen combat. You pampered. Losers have no right to look down on him. He's been personally recognized by military leadership while you were all busy gossiping like old biddies. Up on stage, I waited for the murmurs to die down. I gave a quick nod to the crowd, keeping the pleasantries brief. As an international trade merchant, I've prepared a unique gift to celebrate New English High's 80th anniversary. Dahe, reveal it to the students and our guests. Dahe yanked the corner of the heavy black tarp, sending a cloud of dust billowing into the air. As it settled, a 10-meter-long, meter-wide metallic beast was revealed on the back of the truck. Students, I announced, a carrier rocket. May our alma mater soar as high as this. A carrier rocket, someone yelled, skeptical. That's impossible. A group of teachers and science students swarmed the truck, their initial awe quickly turning into confusion. They noticed the lack of multi-stage boosters. The fuel tank was far too short to reach geostationary orbit. Then, they saw the nose cone. It wasn't a payload fairing, it was clearly a warhead. That's not a rocket, a teacher breathed, his voice trembling. That's a sword, an intercontinental ballistic missile. He actually brought a real ICBM. Lin Chuan, you really are an arms dealer. One of my old teachers muttered, half horrified and half admiring. I've spent my life dreaming of something this wild, and you actually pulled it off. Tell me, how did you get this? Don't tell me you built it yourself. Not this one, I replied with a smirk. I liberated it from the Japanese. Wait, another classmate chimed in, eyes widening. The one who wrecked those Japanese patrol boats. That was you, wasn't it? I just shrugged. You've got to be kidding me. A student from a rival school scoffed, stepping forward. A high schooler liberating an ICBM? He probably doesn't even know what a Japanese warship looks like. Look, today's a celebration for several schools, but I can't just stand by and watch the decline of our traditional values. New English students are nothing but show-offs. You don't have an ounce of real character. What's your problem? A student from New English barked back. Why is your school better than ours? The challenger sneered, pointing a finger at me. Did you all hear him? He claims he snatched this missile right out of the hands of the Japanese Navy. You all nodded like you believed him. Let me ask you this. Do you honestly believe a high schooler could defeat the Japanese Navy? The challenger's words hit the crowd like a lead weight. Before anyone could respond, Zhao Ruhai, the principal of the rival school, stepped into the silence. Students, Lin Chuan's model is admittedly impressive, perhaps even a 1-to-1 scale replica. The craftsmanship is breathtaking. But we must be realistic. Our own Navy doesn't even deploy ballistic missiles like this, let alone ICBMs. The room wavered. The skepticism was infectious, and even the staunchest supporters of New English High began to doubt. I just stood there, watching the tide turn. It wasn't about the missile anymore. It was about pride. Lin Chuan might have just misspoken, a teacher whispered to the principal, trying to save face. But look at the detail. It's better than anything in the National Museum. You can't just dismiss that. Exactly. Facts matter, a student shouted. Whoever did what happened in the East China Sea is a hero. They crushed the Japanese ego, and they deserve our gratitude. Lin Chuan gifting this to our school is a reminder to always stay vigilant. Perhaps, the challenger countered, his voice dripping with condescension. But he shouldn't claim the glory of a national hero for himself. That's pathetic. Miles away, General Gao Shui checked his watch, his brow furrowed with mounting anxiety. Faster. How much longer? 5 minutes out, sir. The 2-minute delay felt like an eternity. He prayed nothing had gone sideways. Back on campus, the air was suffocating. What should have been a joyful anniversary had devolved into a petty, cringeworthy standoff between schools. Everyone was staring at me, waiting for me to crack. The principal looked at me, desperate for an exit. Mr. Lin, is this missile real or not? I kept my voice calm, projecting across the courtyard. Don't worry, experts are on their way to verify it. I believe they're pulling up now. As if on cue, the distant rumble of heavy engines shook the ground. A convoy of military vehicles tore through the school gates, tires screeching as they screeched to a halt. The crowd gasped in unison. Wait, those are military trucks? My God, what is happening? Are there graduates serving in the military? Then, the rhythmic thwack-thwack of helicopter blades cut through the air. A bird descended low, kicking up a whirlwind of dust and debris. New English High had definitely leveled up their guest list. Secure the vehicle. Nobody gets within 10 feet. A soldier barked, leaping from a transport. Commander, the site is secured. We have a perimeter around the missile, the lead officer reported. The sight of armed soldiers swarming the flatbed, treating it with the absolute caution of a live nuke, sucked the oxygen out of the room. The look of smug superiority on the Challenger's face vanished, replaced by sheer, unadulterated terror. If it was a model, they wouldn't be treating it like a ticking time bomb. The students realized it at the same moment. The model was never a model at all. Every word I'd said was the cold, hard truth. It was clear the Challenger was about to have a very bad day. The military commander stepped forward, his posture rigid. Lin Chuan, on behalf of the national military, I want to thank you for your immense contribution to the country. The courtyard went deathly silent. Everyone was stunned, but what truly baffled the crowd was the commander's posture. He was practically deferential, almost humble. If anything, it looked like I was the one doing the looking down. Gao Shuwei, what are you trying to say? I asked, cutting straight to the point. The commander cleared his throat, his eyes darting toward the crowd. Lin Chuan, this batch of agricultural equipment you've imported is incredibly advanced enough to help us leapfrog the US. I understand your desire to showcase it at your alma mater, but you really should have considered that its design is, well, it looks a bit too much like a missile. It's bound to cause misunderstandings. Wait, the general called it farm machinery? Someone whispered. It doesn't look like any tractor I've ever seen. It's just a cover story, obviously. Who knows what that thing actually is? Fan Tianlei, seeing the commander's line, quickly stepped in to smooth things over. Students, agricultural technology has reached new heights. You've been busy with your studies, so it's natural you're unfamiliar with such cutting-edge tech. This isn't just the future of farming, it's a crystallization of modern research and intellect. So, what does it actually do? A student shouted. It's an intelligent pesticide spraying system. Fan explained smoothly. Input the coordinates, and it automatically deploys to the designated area, releasing a compound known as Black Lock Gold over a 200-meter radius. The crowd murmured. Anyone with a modicum of knowledge knew Black Lock Gold was a common propellant used in high-explosive munitions. Exactly. Gao Shiwei jumped back in, his voice booming. The military has known about this top-tier equipment for a long time, but we haven't had the chance to import it from Japan until now. Mr. Lin, our nation's most prominent international trader, deserves full credit for this acquisition. The effort he put in is beyond anything any of you could imagine. Gao's words were half truth and half fabrication, but his goal was clear: bury this incident before it spiraled. Handing a ballistic missile to a high school was a public relations nightmare they couldn't afford. So it really is just farm gear? One student mused. Does farm gear usually require a whole battalion and a bomb squad? Are the pesticides explosive or something? You don't get it, do you? It's revolutionary tech. Even agricultural chemicals can have explosive properties under the right conditions, another argued. What are you actually trying to pull? Gao Shiwei whispered to me, his voice tight. You can't just bring this to a school. It needs to be under military custody, or there's going to be a disaster. Why not bring it here? It's not illegal, I replied coolly. You're sure about that? You clearly need a law degree, kid. Watching the military brass grovel to a teenager had the crowd spinning. Who is this guy? Is he just a front man for some shell company we use to bypass international trade sanctions? You think a shell company boss gets generals to talk to him like that? Something is seriously off. I just leaned back unfazed. What am I doing? I'm just advertising. Can't you see? You really don't get it, do you? I said, casting a casual glance at the guys from the African delegation standing in the crowd. General Gao Shiwei shook his head, a silent signal that my antics were pushing his luck. Doing business with the African delegates to support their infrastructure projects aligned with national interests. But this was a headache. To prevent any further misunderstandings about this carrier rocket, Gao announced to the crowd, the military will assist Mr. Lin in relocating this agricultural equipment. Everyone please disperse. Hold it, I interrupted. This thing is mine. Nobody is touching it. Besides, my assistant's contact info is right there on the side. The crowd finally shifted their attention to the missile's nose cone. They'd been staring at a string of digits, assuming it was a serial number, only to realize it was a phone number. Beside me, Anran looked like she was about to have a nervous breakdown. That was her number. Gao realized I wasn't backing down. He switched gears, his voice dropping to a diplomatic murmur. Lin Chuan, you're a patriot at heart. We all know you want to advance our nation's agricultural standards. I understand wanting to take your business to the next level, so how about this? The military will commission a replica, a perfect model with your contact info displayed, and will pay 100 million USD for this piece of machinery. I calculated the numbers. My demonstration had already done its job. The people who mattered knew exactly who to call, and the ones who couldn't figure it out weren't worth my time anyway. A businessman knows that even a small mosquito is still meat. Since the military was playing ball, I decided to give them the win. I'll leave the final say to the principal, I said, suppressing a grin. The principal nearly jumped out of his skin. He knew this was a live ICBM, not a tractor, and he wanted it off his campus yesterday before someone accidentally poked it and turned the school into a crater. He nodded frantically at Gao. Gao caught my gaze, and I gave a single, sharp nod. Instantly, dozens of soldiers swarmed the truck, securing the missile with professional, lightning-fast precision. Lin Chuan, come with us, Gao ordered. We have a lot to discuss. You're leaving already? A student cried out. I wanted a selfie. The principal finally found his voice. He realized that with the crowd's awe at its absolute peak, this was the perfect moment for the star alumni speech he'd originally planned. Mr. Lin, please, just a few words for the students? Fine, just a few. I stepped up to the microphone. That little misunderstanding earlier, just a prank. My apologies to everyone, I trust you don't mind? I scanned the crowd, meeting the eyes of the students who looked ready to protest. I don't need an inspirational quote. I need a nap, I thought, but I kept my smile sharp. I'm only here today because of the support of my classmates, my teachers, the principal, my family, and of course, Da Ya and Da Hei, to show my appreciation. The 100 million I just made on that farm machinery, I'm donating it all to the school. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I stood at the mic, watching them. I hope every student here, regardless of which school you attend, crushes your exams and finds your own path to success. But let's be real, everyone walks a different road. If you don't make it to college, don't sweat it. You're welcome to come work for me as an agent. I can provide the agricultural equipment and help you get your business off the ground. Wait, you mean the farm machines? A student asked, looking confused. Exactly, I replied, catching Gao Shui's eye. As the general said, it's specialized gear, aerial spraying, deep soil tilling, precision plowing. My goal is to push these technologies to every corner of the globe. I looked over at the delegation from Africa. Their eyes were locked on the missile, completely unable to look away. My trap was set. Once I secured those contracts, becoming one of the world's top arms dealers would be a cakewalk. Come along, Mr. Lin, Gao Shui said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. We have more important matters to discuss. He signaled Fan Tianlei, who pulled a military Humvee right up to the stage and swung the door open for me. As I stepped toward the vehicle, followed by Da Hei and Da Ya, the crowd erupted in disbelief. The general was personally playing chauffeur. Once we were underway, Gao wasted no time. Lin Chuan, are you selling the blueprints? Not for sale. The military will pay a premium for the M1A2 designs, he pressed. You realize it's for the advancement of our national defense, right? He was trying to probe me, banking on the idea that every man has a price. But those blueprints were my lifeblood. They were never leaving my sight. Does the M1A2 have any weaknesses? He tried again. We're willing to pay for that data. I told you before, the M1A2 has no weaknesses. Your intelligence department should have figured that out by now. We haven't exactly faced one in combat, he muttered. Or any other modern main battle tank for that matter. I leaned back. I'll tell you this for free. The Type 99A is the third best tank in the world. Gao's eyes lit up. You have those blueprints too? Of course. I shrugged. I heard your domestic production is slow 15 years to phase out the old inventory. Give the order to me, and I'll speed that up. I don't believe in an impenetrable tank, he insisted. If you won't sell the blueprints, just sell us a few M1A2s. I let out a soft laugh. General, it's not that I don't want the business. I have a professional code of ethics as an arms dealer, and I can't violate that. I looked him dead in the eye. The M1A2 doesn't actually exist. I made it up. The only weakness in a tank is the gap between its armor and the penetration power of a missile. I explained, leaning back as the Humvee rumbled along. We've studied the M1A2 extensively. There are no obvious flaws. Its performance ceiling is still a total mystery. Gao sighed, looking out the window. Right now, it's not China that should be sweating over that tank, it's the US. What do you mean? My tanks are shipping out. When they hit the battlefield, it'll be a wake-up call for everyone. It's China's chance to see exactly how far American anti-tank technology has actually progressed. I smirked. And besides, according to American doctrine, they never pit their own tanks against each other. They'll just try to suppress them with something more advanced. Gao wasn't convinced. Even without a structural weakness, it's unclear if the Star Moon Legion can actually utilize the M1A2's potential. China needs you to step in and stabilize the region. It's a matter of national interest. I care about my interests, I replied flatly. You'll benefit too, believe me. The military won't forget. Gao leaned in, his voice dropping. You don't understand why China needs you involved. The situation in Yiguo directly impacts the standing of the yuan. If you stabilize the Star Moon Legion, Yiguo can finally cut a deal with us using the yuan for oil transactions. The only reason the US keeps so many troops there is to keep the board shuffled in their favor. So what's in it for me? If you shift the balance of power, the military will handle the Japanese harassment for you and provide top-tier protection. We'll even use our cruise ships to transport your hardware though. Obviously, our men won't be hitting the front lines. You handle the logistics. If the Legion holds the line, we'll let you buy into Yiguo's oil industry. The stake depends on your performance. I considered it. The Japanese patrol ships weren't exactly a threat, they were just annoying. Oil was okay, but a bit of a chicken wing deal, lots of effort, little meat. But having the Chinese military handle my logistics, that was a game changer. I'm interested, I said, but I have one condition. Name it. I'm short on manpower. I've only got Dahlia as an assistant. Send me a bodyguard, a female, special forces trained. Done. I'll send you the best we have. She'll serve as your military liaison too. While we hammered out the details, thousands of miles away, US President Jack sat in the Oval Office, staring down at a thick, troubling stack of reports. President Jack stared at the reports, his brow furrowed in disbelief. How could a simple yacht cripple the Japanese fleet? And why hadn't the Prime Minister reported a word of this? His technical team had confirmed the footage was authentic, but the reality of it defied logic. I grabbed the secure line. Time to force the issue. If a Chinese arms dealer decides to play pirate, then we don't have to play by the rules either. The world's policeman shouldn't have any trouble dealing with a pirate, should he? Mr. President, I didn't expect a call in the middle of the night, the Japanese Prime Minister stammered. Prime Minister, I hear you failed to apprehend that Chinese arms dealer. 2 gunboats sunk and a frigate hijacked. Mr. President, how could I possibly be the one demanding answers from China? They're the ones squeezing us. Surely your advisors have briefed you on our government's latest statement. Jack swung his gaze toward his military advisor, who was already breaking into a cold sweat. Just as the tension hit a breaking point, the advisor's tablet buzzed. He scanned the screen, his face turning pale, and slid the device toward Jack. The first headline alone was enough to stun the president into silence. What kind of twisted soap opera is this? Jack thought, his mind reeling. Why was the hijacked Japanese frigate suddenly claiming it was the pirate vessel? Did China really have the leverage to grind Japan into the dirt like this? Prime Minister, Jack hissed. I have a meeting in minutes. Why would you subject your nation to such humiliation? Wasn't sanctioning China the entire point of this operation? Mr. President, shouldn't I be the one asking you that? I don't follow. You wouldn't have forgotten what was on that frigate, would you? The very cargo you sold us yourself. Jack's head felt like it was going to explode. The pieces clicked into place. Japan wasn't silent because they were weak. They were silent because they were being held hostage. If China chose to leak what was actually on that ship, they could claim Japan violated UN resolutions and justify a full-scale military strike. CIA Special Operations. Jack barked into his headset. How many men can we scramble? Mr. President, the Prime Minister cut in, his voice cold. I must advise you to stay your hand. 3 Chinese H-6K bombers just passed through the East China Strait. They aren't turning back, they're headed straight for your naval headquarters in Hawaii. The Chinese aren't stupid. They know exactly who sold us those missiles. Jack stared at the map. Find me that arms dealer. Where is he? Last seen in Donghai City, sir. But he's been picked up by the military. Damn it, Jack muttered, his knuckles white. What is China's endgame here? The only thing we know for sure is that he's a massive threat, Mr. President, my advisor muttered. Given the upcoming election, we really can't afford another blunder. So what? Jack snapped. We just sit here and let him undermine us. If Russia finds out about those ballistic missiles in Japan, they'll have a field day. Jack knew he had to keep the peace for the sake of his re-election campaign, but I could tell he was only biding his time. Where's the Kurdish militia right now? They're closing in on Mosul, the stronghold in northern Yiguo. I've ordered them to pick up the pace. I need a win before the polls open. While Jack plotted, I arrived at the harbor, ready to depart for Persia. The whole region was a powder keg, and Persia was preparing for an inevitable American strike. Dahé met me at the dock, reporting that the Visby-class frigate was already docked at Kiribati, fully loaded with the tanks. Understood, I said. Anyone else joining us? You might recognize her, Dahé replied, gesturing toward the woman walking our way. She's the contact from the Southeast Military Region. Long Xiaoyun walked up to us. Mr. Lin, I presume, and you must be his assistant. I raised an eyebrow. Wait, you? What are you doing here? I don't make those decisions, she said coolly. Enough, I cut in. We're all acquainted now, so let's get down to business. I glanced between them. They were acting like old friends. You two sure seem close for strangers. It's our first time meeting, Long Xiaoyun insisted, though her eyes lingered on me. Sure. Well, since you're helping out, here a gift. I wasn't the type to take handouts, but in this business, you need allies. I wasn't trying to charm her. I just needed the mission to succeed. Dahé hauled over a long, heavy case. Long Xiaoyun cracked it open, her eyes widening at the sight of the legendary anti-tank rifle inside. A Barrett X-30-109, she whispered. You and Daya seem to be on the same wavelength, I said with a shrug. Consider it a welcome gift. Thanks, she replied, her demeanor softening. Let's move. Once on board, I was greeted by Mr. Aladdin. Mr. Lin, I've transferred 50% of the payment. I'm hoping for a swift delivery. Anran checked her laptop. Boss, 600 million USD confirmed. What's the status on the front? I asked. Aladdin's forces are at the southern outskirts of Mosul, she reported. They're preparing to strike, but their defense is pathetic, just infantry, machine guns, and some mines. Tell him the first 5 tanks are already in transit to Port, I said. And tell him there are 20 more on the way, courtesy of the Chinese military's cargo ships. Aladdin's jaw dropped. Mr. Lin, I never imagined you could procure so many tanks so quickly. I leaned back, unimpressed. It's not about the procurement, Aladdin. It's about storage. I only built this many because I'm currently running out of room to park the things. I'll have my team ready to receive the shipment the moment it arrives, Aladdin assured me. But there's one more hurdle. China's cruise ships can't dock directly at Yigo's ports. They have to stop in Persia first and move the gear overland. I need you to recommend a high-ranking military contact in Persia who can secure that transport. I'll handle it, I said. The first batch will reach the port in 5 days. But before you arrive, Mr. Lin, you should understand the current climate. Because of the nuclear standoff, the US has hit Persia with total sanctions, even labeling them a terrorist entity. I'm aware, I replied. Relations between Persia and the US were hanging by a thread, with Washington threatening to rain Tomahawk missiles down on them at the slightest provocation. It was a goldmine for arms dealers, but also a den of cutthroat warlords. I glanced over at my assistant. Yeah, look at that. That's what you call thinking ahead. You could learn a thing or two about being prepared. Boss, do you actually care? She countered. Whether I care is my business. Whether you report the intel is yours, I said, suppressing a grin as we neared the landing zone. Lieutenant General Babak was waiting. Mr. Lin, I received the call from Aladdin. I must say, I didn't expect someone so young. Age is just a number, General. Results are what matter. Perhaps, he replied, his gaze sharp. I hope you have something impressive for the upcoming bidding session. You won't be disappointed. I turned toward his aide. Mr. Bijan, would you mind briefing me on the details of the bid? Of course, Mr. Lin. I heard you sold a shipment to the Star Moon Legion. That must have reached Yiguo by now. What exactly did you sell them? Apologies, General. I gave my word to Aladdin that I wouldn't disclose the specifics until they're deployed. Babak sighed. I understand. But honestly, I think the Legion is finished. They'll have to abandon Mosul, and I doubt they'll survive the retreat. Mosul won't fall, I said calmly. Do you really think the tide can change? He asked, skeptical. The Legion has nothing to counter a heavy armored assault. The only way to win is to overwhelm them with sheer numbers, but that requires more tanks than I think you have. An aide interrupted, looking frantic. General, breaking news. The government forces launched an offensive this morning. They've pushed the front line to the Rawa Gap. Can we reach Aladdin? Babak barked. Yiguo cut off all communications in the north last night, sir. What about our consultants on the ground? Lost contact, sir. And early this morning, US AWACS took off from the airbase. Babak turned to me, his face grim. Mr. Lin, we have to move the bidding up. Now. What happened? I asked. The Legion has been dark for 2 days. Our advisors are gone. Mr. Lin, do you even realize how much American hardware Yuri has? 40 tanks, 100 armored vehicles. The Star Moon Legion is likely already a graveyard. So, this is the reason for moving up the bidding? I asked, looking around the room. Babak didn't mince words. Everyone here is a potential partner. I'll be blunt. Persia is on the brink. We need your absolute support, or we won't last much longer. You shouldn't be so panicked, I said calmly. The Star Moon Legion won't fall. The room went silent. Bijan narrowed his eyes. Mr. Lin, are you doubting the general's intelligence? Not at all. I'm just curious why you're all so certain of their defeat. You clearly underestimate the chaos of Central Asia. Bijan retorted. This is a meat grinder. We have hundreds of skirmishes daily. Thousands of soldiers and civilians die here every year. Do you really think they have a prayer? I'm confident the reports will confirm it soon, I replied, a small smile playing on my lips. A victory report, to be precise. Bijan scoffed. You think they can win with numbers? I can tell you, that's an impossible dream. Enough, Babak interrupted. Let's get back to business. What can you offer, and at what price? Bijan didn't hesitate. I'll start the bidding at $200 million. Gasps rippled through the room. It was a massive opening, and Babak seemed more than satisfied. Before the tension could settle, an aide burst in. General, emergency update. What is it? The US AWACS lifted their electronic jamming over northern Yiguo. Status. Communications aren't fully stable, but our advisors just reported that Yuri has pulled back his forces. Contact Aladdin immediately, Babak ordered. If they've retreated, we need a full situation report. I leaned back. Since the Legion is clearly fine, can we get back to the bidding? Everyone's eyes turned to me. Everyone knew the Legion had only been trading with one person, but no one could figure out how a single arms dealer helped them withstand a full M1A2 armored regiment. I'm here with plenty of sincerity, General, I said, catching Babak's gaze. Oh? And what's on offer? More of those cutting-edge Chinese assault rifles. Rifles were my bread and butter. Sure, I said, shrugging. But they're just the foundation of the industry. Not everyone has deep pockets or Bijan's level of influence. But let me ask you, can a T-72 stand up to an M1A2? Bijan laughed. Mr. Lin, for a self-proclaimed expert, you're awfully ignorant. The M1A2's armor is practically invincible. It's common knowledge. Indeed, I said. And do you think a rifle, even an anti-tank rifle, could pierce it? Ridiculous. I don't need to pierce an M1A2, I countered. I just need to utilize its armor. I had kept Aladdin waiting on purpose. I couldn't let the secret weapon slip until the dust settled, and the delay was clearly eating Bijan alive. He was about to snap when the communications officer reappeared, breathless. General, we've reached the Legion's Chief of Staff. Report, Babak barked. Yuri's forces have fully retreated. The front line is stable. Why did they pull back? Likely because they ran out of ammo, the officer replied. They pushed too hard, too fast. Is Mr. Lin there with you? The voice on the other end crackled. I leaned back, listening as the Legion's Chief of Staff practically sang my praises to Babak. Aladdin wanted me to pass on his eternal gratitude. Holding the line without a single casualty? It's a miracle, Mr. Lin's tanks are nothing short of heaven sent. Please, tell him he saved us. Babak stood frozen, the phone trembling in his grip. I could practically see his brain misfiring. Chief of Staff, did you just say you held the line without a single loss? Yes, General. Thanks to those 5 M1A2s, Mr. Lin delivered. The call ended, but the silence in the command center was deafening. Babak looked like he'd been hit by a mortar shell. Is this real? He whispered, his eyes wide. Aladdin doesn't lie, I replied, suppressing a grin. Bijan was pale, clutching his chest. Tanks, M1A2s? That's impossible. How could American M1A2s even be in Yiguo? Mr. Lin, I had no idea you had this kind of reach. Babak looked at me with a mix of fear and newfound respect. I suppose our previous deal for that T-72 is still on? Perhaps it'll make a nice museum piece. He cleared his throat, waving the room away. I think this bidding session has lost its purpose. Mr. Lin, we need to talk in private. Meanwhile, in the Oval Office, President Jack stared at his latest reports, his frustration boiling over. The retreat is permanent? Confirmed, sir. The observers saw it all. Jack slammed his hand on the desk. First that Barrett, now M1A2s. What's next? Are they going to start fielding our F-22s? This isn't just a series of bad coincidences. It's a joke. I suspect it's that Chinese arms dealer, sir. Jack glared. You think one guy has the means to manufacture American main battle tanks? Your brain must be running on dial-up. That dealer is just a front. He's a proxy for the Chinese military. They've been hiding their progress for years, and they've clearly got deep cover assets in our own backyard. Sir, I'm not sure if it's just a spy issue. Don't question me, Jack barked. Remember the CIA East Asia director scandal? I want the CIA on this. If they don't find the mole, they don't come back. And tell the Third Fleet to head for Yigo immediately. Isn't that a bit extreme, sir? You want to let our M1A2s turn us into a global laughingstock while they're being used by the enemy? Tell them to load up on anti-tank missiles and precision munitions. I don't care how they do it. Stop the tank-on-tank warfare. The election is on the line. Back in Persia, Babak was pacing, having just hung up with the Prime Minister. Mr. Lin, my apologies for the wait, he said, looking rattled. We have a problem. A U.S. Nimitz-class carrier group is approaching our coast. They're making a statement. Are they actually going to attack? I asked. It's a threat, direct containment, he said, eyeing me intently. Mr. Lin, do you have any channels to acquire air defense systems? Something with a 400-kilometer range would do. That's S-400 territory, General. Even with your ties to Russia, that's a tall order. I'll push the president to negotiate with Moscow, but that takes time we don't have. I sighed, shaking my head. General, I have to ask, why do you people always enjoy doing things the hard way? What is that supposed to mean? Why the obsession with air defense? I asked, leaning forward. Why not just take out the carrier itself? You sink the ship, the carrier-based aircraft become nothing more than expensive paperweights. Babak looked at me like I'd suggested we switch to the moon. If Persia had that kind of power, we'd have unified Asia decades ago instead of being under Washington's thumb. It's not about fighting a war right now. It's about deterrence, I countered. The US loves flexing its muscles, but that's not exactly a patented American invention. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Lin? Ever heard of the Dark Forest theory? It's simple, absolute distrust and the capacity for total destruction. I can give you the latter. Babak stiffened. I think you're underestimating the might of a carrier strike group. I waved a hand dismissively. You've all bought into the hype. If carriers were truly invincible, the US would have conquered the world 80 years ago. My casual tone seemed to rattle him, though he remained visibly shaken by the mere mention of a carrier group. General, have you heard of hypersonic anti-ship cruise missiles? You have those? But I didn't see any missile production facilities at your factory. Daya, explain it to him. Anran stepped up. The boss is referring to the latest generation of hypersonic anti-ship missiles. No nation would sell those, Babak stammered. Especially not heavy payload variants. I guarantee, anything under 50,000 tons is going down with a single hit, I said coolly. Babak looked like he'd just seen a ghost. Mr. Lin, there aren't enough words to thank you. Just name your price. I looked at Anran. Daya, you handle the numbers. Anran blinked, caught off guard, but she knew the drill. After a quick mental calculation, she held up 5 fingers. 50 million. 50 million? Babak whispered. 5 million? No, I meant 50 million, I clarified with a smile. Per unit, and in USD, of course. Mr. Lin, our defense budget is tight. I can only afford 5 for now. That works, but I want 50% upfront. Babak frowned. The standard is 30%. Why the change? That's everyone else's standard, I replied. I get 50% because I have the inventory ready for immediate delivery. You get them in your hands, right now. You, You brought heavy anti-ship missiles with you? On a trip? 2 are currently on the yacht at Khomeini port, I confirmed. Bijan looked at me like I was a walking powder keg. He probably was. Let's go see them then, Babak said, already moving. General, wait, I warned. You can't be seen at the docks. The US is looking for any excuse to strike, and they'd love an opportunity to remove you from the board. It's too risky. For a weapon that can sink a carrier, the risk is worth it. General, he's bluffing, Bijan hissed, trying to regain his composure. You know the Zhangdao Treaty forbids the trade of such tech. No nation in their right mind would trade this tech, Bijan scoffed, his skepticism practically vibrating off him. He had a point on paper. It was impossible. But as I stood there, I could feel Babak's gaze shifting. He wasn't looking for logic anymore. He was hunting for a miracle. Dahe, I whispered, catching his eye. Do we have the heavy anti-ship missiles on the yacht? If the boss says we do, then we do, Dahe replied, straight-faced. I turned to the general. Don't blink, or you might miss it. When we finally unveiled the hardware, the atmosphere in the room shifted from doubt to cold, sharp awe. It wasn't just a missile. It was a promise. Babak stepped closer, his hands hovering inches from the chassis. Is this a Zircon? He breathed. You have a good eye, I said. The latest Russian iteration. It carries a 1-ton warhead and hits Mach 10. Whether it's a standard cruiser or a carrier strike group, it's going to punch a hole through anything it touches. It doesn't just hit, it vaporizes. And the guidance? Babak asked, his voice barely audible. It's not just about raw speed, it's the maneuverability. It can skim the waves or dive from high altitude. It's practically invisible to defensive systems. Babak finally flipped open the manual. When he saw the range 1,800 to 2,000 kilometers, the look in his eyes changed. He wasn't just a general anymore. He was a man staring at the keys to a new world order. Mr. Lin, he said, his voice trembling with newfound resolve. Let's consider this deal finalized. I don't have enough liquid USD for this right now, but I have gold. I'll have it moved to your account immediately. The next morning, I was still shaking off the sleep when my phone buzzed. It was Babak. Mr. Lin, we're starting the live fire test for the Zircon at 0900 hours. Are your people trained enough to handle that? I asked, frowning. I'm concerned, he admitted. Relax. I'll head over to provide guidance if needed. I hung up and checked in with Anrin. Any word from the port? We've secured it, boss. Some ships cleared out, but we didn't stop them. Good. Tell the front line to prepare for the heavy shipment. Meanwhile, back at the US command, the mood was far less optimistic. Marshal, an officer, reported, Persia is acting strange. They've declared a no-go zone across the Persian Gulf, citing a missile test. The marshal scoffed. They're just posturing. With our carriers closing in, they're desperate to look tough. Any other anomalies? Nothing besides the usual noise. Just then, my own phone rang again. It was Yuri. Mr. Lin. His voice was oily and precise. My strategic fleet is nearing the Gulf. Your help in Yigo was vital. I wanted to express my sincere gratitude in advance. I let out a low hum. Yuri, if I remember correctly. You were actually stopped by a single breach. I said, my voice dripping with icy disappointment. I heard they only had 5 tanks. Yuri shifted uncomfortably. It was my mistake, Mr. Lin. But I'm confident that with your arrival, the situation will turn around quickly. Just don't drop the ball again, I warned. Mr. Lin, Yuri continued, his tone cautious. I've heard rumors that Persia is preparing a missile test near the Strait of Hormuz, in the Persian Gulf of all places. I let out a soft laugh. Yuri, you have no idea how formidable the defense systems on the USS Iowa are. And if you think anyone would be stupid enough to challenge that ship, they clearly haven't been introduced to the concept of mortality. I trust your strength, Captain, Yuri said, though he still sounded rattled. But Persia, they're desperate. Yuri, I know Persia better than you do. I cut him off. They don't even have a domestic missile program worth mentioning. I'm starting to think your perspective is limited to Central Asia. I'll help you win this war, but stop judging the situation with such a low IQ approach. I turned to my assistant. Bring me the public announcement notice. Setting up a missile test on a fishing boat, it's a joke. Meanwhile, at the Persian test site, the final countdown was underway. General, an aide reported, the missile is prepped. Babak looked at the modified truck launcher, sweat beading on his forehead. Mr. Lin, are you certain using a trailer for this is safe? If the chassis gives way. The recoil is significant, yes, I admitted, checking the stabilizers. But at worst, the truck will be a total loss. The missile, however, will reach its destination without a hitch. Boss, are you sure? Dahe asked, eyeing the massive warhead. It's sitting on bare dirt. Physics doesn't care where it starts, I said. It's going to fly. Babak turned to his monitors. The target ship is in position. The observation vessels are prepped. If this works, Mr. Lin, the next order will be even larger, and yes, I'll pay in gold. I have complete confidence in my product, I replied. And as long as you have the gold, I have the supply. Final preparations, Babak ordered. Fire control systems locked. 3, 2, 1, fire. The roar was deafening, a streak of fire tearing through the sky. I monitored the telemetry, my eyes scanning the data. Everything is nominal, tracking is perfect. Babak grabbed my arm, his voice thick with emotion. Mr. Lin, thank you for everything you've done for Persia. Don't thank me yet, General, I said. a thin smile spreading across my face. The show is just beginning. On the deck of the USS Iowa, the radar technicians sprang to life. Captain, we have a radar signature. High-speed projectile ascending from the Persian northern sector. The captain didn't even look up from his coffee. Persia, they're just setting off fireworks. They don't have anything that can travel 400 kilometers, let alone hit a target at sea. But sir, what if it's not a dummy test? Don't overestimate them, the captain retorted. They can't even manufacture a decent rifle, let alone hypersonic technology. They're probably just firing a glorified rocket into the ocean to look tough. If it actually makes it this far, consider it a live-fire drill for our point defense systems. We don't need to do a thing, they'll miss by a mile. Back at the launch site, my smile vanished as I stared at the screen. General, I said, my voice dropping an octave, we have a problem. The missile's navigation just cut out. General, we've lost the GPS signal, the technician stammered, his face draining of color, and the missile isn't syncing with the Russian GLONASS system. The room spun. I felt the weight of $500 million about to turn into a runaway catastrophe. If the US could toggle the GPS signal at will, then our high-tech investment was effectively a paperweight falling from the heavens. How is it not compatible? I shouted, my temper finally fraying. Didn't you run any integration tests? The lead engineer looked like he'd seen a ghost. Sir, without guidance, a strategic missile over Persian airspace is a disaster waiting to happen. Where is it now? I demanded. Mid-second stage acceleration, drifting over the coastline. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache brewing. My motivation and I are currently in a long-distance relationship, and at this moment, it was clearly on vacation. Anran, check the manual. Does it have a self-destruct sequence or a fail-safe for signal loss? The manual says it enters automatic search mode, she replied, her voice tight. Automatic search? What exactly does that mean? Babak gasped. Exactly what it sounds like. I turned to the engineers. It's a strategic weapon. Does it have an inertial guidance fallback? The engineer's eyes lit up. Right. It has multiple protocols. If one fails, it should cycle to the next. Find the trajectory then, I ordered. Get the military satellites on it. I need to know how many ships are in that sector immediately. On the deck of the Times, USS Iowa, the mood was smug. Well, that was a bust, the captain laughed, sipping his coffee. I thought Persia might actually launch something decent. Turns out it's just a glorified firework. You were right, sir. His officer agreed. Persia doesn't have a brain between them. That missile is probably going to crater right back into their own backyard. We came here to test our point defense systems, but they can't even give us a target. The captain scoffed. If they ever actually managed to get a missile near us, it'd be nothing more than target practice. Our anti-missile tech is years ahead of anything on this planet. It's a shame, really. I was looking forward to showing them what real technology looks like. Shall we record a protest if they try to blame us for the debris? Let them try, the captain dismissed with a wave of his hand. This is our sea. They can whine all they want. It won't change who holds the leash. Back at the launch site, the tension was suffocating. I watched the telemetry as Anran scrambled at the console. Boss, navigation is still failing. Suddenly, the proximity alarms erupted, blaring through the command center. What's triggering the alert? I yelled over the noise. Target acquired. The technician screamed. Bearing 300, distance 900 kilometers. It's correcting its trajectory. It's not crashing, I murmured, watching the data stabilize. It's locking on. Captain, the missile has hit Mach 6, a technician reported, his voice tight with tension. It's just a lost piece of junk, the captain scoffed, waving a hand dismissively. Stop sweating it. Stay the course. I watched the data stream, my own pulse steady. The missile was well out to sea, screaming through its third stage of acceleration. Beside me, the lead engineer looked like he was suffering from a migraine, still obsessing over the phrase automatic search in the manual. Babak had already cleared the local fishing lanes, but Dahe leaned in, whispering, Boss, you're sure this won't turn into a diplomatic disaster? I don't lose sleep over problems that haven't happened yet, I replied coolly. Mr. Lin, Babak said, bowing his head. Regardless of the outcome, I appreciate the effort. Back on the USS Iowa, the radar monitors suddenly began to whine. Captain, the missile's flight path is changing, an officer shouted. It's turning toward us. The captain finally stopped sipping his coffee. Looks like Persia actually built a decent toy for once. Fine, power up the Aegis system. It's overkill for a single target, but let's give the crew a little target practice. Show them that even if they hit the bullseye, it's all in vain. He leaned back, looking smug. Begin the interception. The ship roared to life, systems locking on with lethal precision. But as the seconds ticked by, the technician's face went pale. Impossible. Captain, what is happening? The missile didn't just fly, it began a low-altitude sea-skimming maneuver that shouldn't have been possible without active, real-time guidance. How is it doing that? The captain roared, slamming his glass onto the table. It's a runaway missile. It shouldn't be capable of complex maneuvering without human input. Are we firing or not? The radar screen went blank, but I knew the Aegis system should have been active. Yet, Captain Reynolds stood frozen, his mouth agape, failing to issue a single command. Do you feel that heat? Someone whispered, panic edging into their tone. The air. It's like a furnace. You're losing it, I thought, though the hair on my arms stood up. Then came the shout that ended the silence. Missile, it's right on top of us. Engage the phalanx. Reynolds screamed, but it was too late. Far away, Yuri was pacing his command center, irritation gnawing at him. Where are the Americans? Did they hit a snag? He was beginning to wonder if they'd stopped to hunt pirates when his satellite phone finally blared to life. Captain Reynolds, report. Where are you? Yuri barked. We're waiting at the port. Get moving. Get over here and pick us up, you idiot. A voice roared back, sounding less like Reynolds and more like a man whose world had just ended. The Iowa has sunk. Reynolds is dead. The line went dead. Yuri stood paralyzed, the weight of the words hitting him like a physical blow. Back at my command post, the air in the room was electric. General, I said, pointing to the monitor, the results are in. We were looking at satellite imagery of the strike zone. At first, there was only confusion. Is that a fishing boat? One of the generals muttered. Don't be a moron, I countered, zooming in. Does that look like a fishing vessel to you? As the resolution sharpened, the truth hit the room like a sledgehammer. The wreckage was clearly marked with the distinct flag of a U.S. frigate, and next to it, the hulking, mangled remains of the Iowa. The Iowa. The same Leviathan that had once suffocated this entire region with its shadow now lay as scrap metal on the ocean floor. The silence that followed was absolute. I can officially declare, I said, breaking the quiet, the Fallen Star project is a total success. Babbitt was trembling, his face a mask of shock and delight. Mr. Lin, I never imagined your missiles were this capable. I want 10 more. 10? I asked, already calculating the weight of the gold. That's going to be 6 cubic meters, General. Whatever the cost. He beamed. Is there any weakness? Any way to stop them? If they have an AWACS, providing constant detection for an Aegis system, they might get a lucky shot, I admitted. But carrier aircraft have to land eventually. Your missiles, they're always ready. Babak's grin grew wider. The US wouldn't dare shadow these waters for years to come. But now, we had a diplomatic nightmare to clean up. You can't exactly sink a US battleship and just walk away. Half an hour later, the news reached the Oval Office. The president was staring at the report, his face pale. Why had the Iowa gone down? And more importantly, why was the greatest symbol of American naval power currently resting at the bottom of the Persian coast? Mr. President, this was no accident, I said, my voice cutting through the heavy air of the Oval Office. The president glared at me, his face a mask of barely contained rage. I'm not an idiot. Do you really expect me to believe another nation just waltzed in and challenged the dignity of the USS Iowa? I bit my tongue. How could I explain that a ship equipped with the Aegis system and phalanx CIWS had been obliterated as easily as a paper boat? For a moment, I even wondered if the crew had just smashed it into a reef. We've certainly had our share of navigational mishaps before. I asked you what hit her. The president snapped. Was it incompetence? Did they scuttle their own ship? We're waiting on confirmation from the escort frigate, the advisor stammered, looking as lost as I felt. Confirmation? The president roared. Didn't Persia just launch a missile? That's a direct insult to American authority. I don't care if the report isn't confirmed, we don't let small nations spit on us. Just then, an aide rushed in, trembling. Mr. President, the transmission arrived. It's quite lengthy. How long is this report? 27,000 pages, sir. The president looked like he was about to have a stroke. I am losing my mind. My time is worth millions, and I have to sift through 27,000 pages to find out why a battleship sank. Who wrote this? The author has already been dealt with, the advisor muttered. The CIA director personally removed a specific part of him, dried it out, and hung it around the neck of the Nixon statue in the presidential memorial. A reminder for future generations. Nice touch, the president muttered, though his fury remained. What about Reynolds? Was that fool incapable of even turning on the radar? Show me the satellite images. I pulled up the feed. The footage confirmed everything we feared. Mr. President, the advisor interrupted. With the election coming up, we have to be careful about military escalation. I don't care about the election. I want to know if a Persian missile sank the Iowa. The aide handed over a tablet. Sir, Persia just released a statement. They claim a soldier accidentally entered the wrong launch data, causing the missile to veer off course into the southern territorial waters. They say it hit a neighboring fishing boat and that, because they declared the area a no-go zone, they aren't responsible. The president's face turned a shade of purple I'd never seen before. Accidental? The world only knows one superpower that accidentally sinks things. Tell the Nimitz-class carrier in the Gulf to move to the southern coast immediately. If they think they can just blow up the Iowa and call it a fishing accident, they've got another thing coming. They're just flexing now, I muttered, pacing the Oval Office. If I send a carrier group, it'll be a full-scale show of force. I couldn't believe it. As the President of the United States, I was being threatened by Persia. It felt like I was in a fight with a broken elevator. I was being taken to another level of frustration. Mr. President, my advisor interrupted, his face pale. The internet is already swarming with reports that the Iowa has been sunk. What? How could they possibly know already? I roared. And does anyone have any intel on how many of these missiles Persia actually has? We don't even know where they came from. The frigate crew claims it was a Russian-made system, one of their non-exportable models, he replied. Call the Kremlin, I ordered. Get the Russian president on the line. I want to know why they're arming Persia. Remind them that the INF treaty isn't just a piece of paper. The connection was cold, brief, and insulting. When I confronted their secretary, he laughed. Mr. President, you're the ones who withdrew from the INF treaty. You have no right to cite a document you refuse to sign. I suggest you step away from your desk and see a psychiatrist. You're clearly having a breakdown. I slammed the phone down. I don't need an inspirational quote. I need a nap. Well, sir, my advisor asked, shrinking away from my glare. Russia claims they're innocent, but they were barely polite about it, I growled. Find out what that missile actually is and where they got it. The report came back hours later. Sir, it's a private arms dealer, a Chinese national. A Chinese dealer in the land of dragons? I felt a vein throb in my temple. If China and Russia are working together, how are we supposed to maintain order? My motivation and I are in a long-distance relationship, and it feels like it's officially broken up with me. Mr. President, we need a win before the election, the advisor noted quietly. I know, I snapped. But if China is using Persia as a foothold, they'll link Africa to Central Asia and secure the Suez Canal. That's a nightmare scenario. It's about their infrastructure bases, sir, he added. The one in Djibouti they claim it's purely for support, but given their speed, we know better. I stared at the map. My inbox was already a museum of unanswered questions, and this was just another headache for future me to deal with. I signaled the carrier group to hold their position. Sending them in now would only play into the hands of the very people who just turned my battleship into an artificial reef. If I moved too fast, I'd be dodging responsibilities right into a geopolitical disaster. If they can turn Djibouti into a second Guam in just a month, the implications are chilling. Once the Suez Canal falls under Chinese influence, their projection of power will reach the Atlantic, threatening the security of both America and Britain. China's strategy is becoming clear, and I have no intention of sitting still while they box us in. My projects in Africa are already prepared. It's time to pull out the roots of their overseas presence. Boss, Dahe sighed, wiping sweat from his forehead. If we keep doing this, I'm going to lose my edge. I'm starting to feel like a house cat. A businessman needs to know when to strike and when to relax, I replied, leaning back. Stop complaining about the tan and just wait. The news is coming. Sure enough, it didn't take long. Boss, it's here, a coup in Djibouti. I stood up immediately. Pack your bags. It's time. I knew I needed to update Commander Gao. They were likely already aware, but I was curious to see if the military had finally realized they needed me for something bigger than small-scale arms deals. Commander Gao, I began, skipping the pleasantries. I heard about the coup in Djibouti. It's a disaster, he admitted, his voice strained. The opposition formed a red turban army and seized the capital. Our warships are deployed, but we have too many citizens trapped in the interior. They have no way to reach the port. Can't you send the Marines? It's complicated, Lin. The rebels control the government. Any direct intervention would be classified as an act of aggression. It's clearly an American setup. They're using this coup to force China out and invalidate our treaties. There has to be a way, I pressed. There's one option. Gao hesitated. A retired Special Forces operative is in Djibouti, a man named Lang Feng. His actions wouldn't trigger an international incident. Lang Feng? I asked. Is he alone? He is. And I know Lin Chuan is going to be there too. Maybe you should. I'm going to help him, I interrupted. Commander, ask Chuan if he has a way to extract the 44 stranded citizens. That's a lot of people to move quietly. It's impossible, Lin. They can't coordinate that kind of movement under fire. Ask him anyway. The military will pay whatever it takes. I paused, my mind already running through my inventory. Commander, if I crush the rebels, does that satisfy the requirement? No large-scale weapons. The hostages are deep in the war zone. They're human shields. Ask Chuan for a plan. The rebels won't move against the hostages until they've secured their power, so we have a sliver of time. I hung up and sent the message to Chuan. A moment later, the reply pinged back. I'll take the job. The price is 1 million per person, I said, leaning back. And tell Commander Gao I have one more condition. Once the citizens are secure, I want usage rights to the Djibouti naval base. I'll relay that, Lin Chuan. The military will agree. Boss, Dahe interjected once the call ended. The situation in Djibouti isn't something one team can handle. There are over 300,000 rioters and rebels out there. They don't care about any arms dealer's code of honor. Don't worry, I replied, staring out at the horizon. I'm not planning on doing the heavy lifting myself. I believe Lang Feng can handle the bulk of it solo. In fact, I'm planning to turn him into a super soldier. I'm calling it the Wolf Warrior Project. I pulled out my phone and dialed Da Bai. Boss? Keep Lin Shu back to handle the tank logistics. Take the Queen, get her to the waters off the port of Djibouti, and arrive within 4 days. And load everything from warehouse number 3 into the hull. A yacht for a secret extraction? Da Bai sounded skeptical. Boss, wouldn't a smaller boat be more subtle? You'll understand soon enough. As we approached the coast of Djibouti, I stood on the deck with Dahe. Stay off the main port? I ordered. It's time to find our Wolf Warrior. Nearby, I heard a young voice chime in. Dad, the Red Turban Army is everywhere, and they're heavily armed. Are you really going to save people with just a handgun? Afraid? I asked, looking at the kid. I'm not afraid, they replied, though their eyes betrayed them. I grew up in war zones, I just don't want to lose you. Fear or not, some things have to be done. A moment later, I caught a transmission on the radio. Captain, are you still there? I'm here, I muttered to myself. I'll be there on time. As we drew closer, Da He pointed toward the harbor. Boss, look at the warships anchored there. Which country? I squinted through my binoculars. The United States. Things are worse than I thought. News reports were already surfacing about a laminar virus outbreak on top of the Civil War. My brow furrowed. Viruses were the one thing you couldn't just shoot your way out of. We weren't just here to pull out 44 civilians anymore. We had to secure Dr. Chen, the nation's leading virologist. Da He, drop anchor, I commanded. Boss, how are we going to execute this? Don't you need us on the ground? Stay on the ship, I said, checking my gear. Lang Feng is already in the thick of it. He's one man against an army, but even a lone wolf can tip the scales if he's pushed hard enough. You want to turn Lang Feng into some kind of super soldier? Da He asked, squinting at me. Dream on, I scoffed. I'm an arms dealer, not a mad scientist. I don't deal in genetic engineering. Just then, Dubai arrived with the shipment. Boss, the gear is here. Good. I said, a grin spreading across my face. Let's go see my secret weapon, and for the record, both of you are going to be using it soon. Boss, just tell us what it is already. I led them to the cargo hold and opened the crate. Inside sat a specialized drone, the Times Grim Reaper. Dubai stared at it, bewildered. You're really going to use a drone to take out the Red Turban Army's military facilities? Don't be dense. I corrected him. Mass destruction is a headache I don't need. The Americans are hovering nearby, and I can't risk the hostages. This drone is purely for airdropping tactical gear to Lang Feng. Think of it as a care package from the sky. Care package? You're joking, right? I'm deadly serious. You two are handling the flight controls. Check the console for the manual. I radioed Lang Feng. How's the situation? I'll be at the rendezvous on time, he replied, his voice calm amidst the chaos. I turned back to my team. Launch it. Meanwhile, Lang Feng had kicked down a door to find Qian Beta cowering inside. What are you doing here? Qian shrieked. The Red Turban Army is hunting every Chinese citizen in the country. You're just bringing trouble to my doorstep. No time for explanations, Lang Feng growled, grabbing him by the collar. Get in the car. My car's broken. You're going to get us killed. Sit down and shut up. Lang Feng shoved him into the driver's seat and floored it. We've got targets, a rebel commander shouted from behind, pointing at their speeding vehicle. Chase them down. They're heading for the ambassador, another rebel yelled. Lang Feng ignored the panic. Ambassador Fan said he'd take the refugees if we can get to the embassy. We're safe. You're delusional. The embassy is our only hope, and they'll kill us before we even get close. When they reached the gates, they were met by a standoff. A rebel captain stood his ground, eyeing the embassy walls nervously. He was waiting for orders from his general, who was currently weighing the consequences of attacking a Chinese sovereign site. General, I'm at the embassy, the captain spoke into his radio. Clear them out. Arrest everyone. Now, open fire, the captain screamed. Get down. Lang Feng tackled Qian Beta just as bullets began chewing through the sedan. They barely escaped, drifting the car into a narrow alleyway. Ambassador Fan. Lang Feng shouted, spotting the man alone at the gate. Is anyone else left inside? Just me, Fan replied, stunned. Everyone else has already been evacuated via the fleet. Qian Beta was trembling. They're attacking the embassy. They've lost their minds. Where are we going, Lang Feng? Qian gasped as the rebels' motorcycles roared into the alley behind them. East suburbs, Lang Feng replied, his knuckles white on the wheel. There's a shortcut. If we can reach that drop point, we have a chance. And if there's no hope? Lang Feng didn't answer. He just drove, praying the cargo I dropped would get there before the motorcycles did. We should just give up, Qian Bida whimpered, his voice trembling. We're Chinese citizens. The Red Turban Army won't hurt us. I ignored him, hitting the brakes as I spotted a crate sitting in the middle of the road. I stepped out to inspect it. It was exactly what I'd been promised. Get out of here, I told Qian, gesturing to the sedan. There's enough fuel to get you 5 or 6 kilometers down the road. You know this area, you're wealthy, you'll find another ride. Are you crazy? This is suicide. Qian stared at the crate. What's even in there? Is it explosives? He looked up at the sky, searching for the transport plane that dropped it, but there was nothing, just an empty expanse of blue. Lang Feng, don't be a fool. We can still run. We don't even know if that gear is functional, and there's a whole company of rebels on our tails. I didn't tell him where the supplies came from. Whether it was the military or a mysterious benefactor, it didn't matter. It came from Long Xiaoyun, and that was enough. My internal monologue was cut short by the grim realization. This was about to become a one-man war. Go. Now. I shoved Qian toward the driver's seat. Take care of yourself. I stood my ground as the rebels roared into view. Surrender, Chinese. Their commander bellowed, his rocket launcher leveled at me. Give us Ambassador Fan, or you'll be scattered to the wind with these rocks. I'm counting to 3. 3, 2, 1, fire. He triggered the rocket, but he made a fatal mistake. Before he could even blink, I'd unpacked the crate. The sound of a Gatling gun tearing through the air silenced the rebels' bravado. Damn those Chinese. Where did they get that kind of firepower? The commander shrieked as his unit began to shatter. Run. Fall back. I watched them scramble, though a few managed to slip away into the chaos. I pulled out my radio. This is Lang Feng. Lang Feng, move to the hospital immediately, the voice on the other end commanded. Dr. Chen, our virus expert, is trapped. The situation is critical. Understood. Moving out. Back on the ship, I watched the drone footage feed. Lang Feng has the gear and Ambassador Fan is safe, I noted. But the Red Turban Army is flooding the capital. This isn't just a coup anymore, it's a full-scale collapse. Boss, any other ideas? Da He asked. Time to take the road less traveled, I replied. Across town, the rebel General Balagu was livid. Damon is dead? How? A lone Chinese soldier blocked them, a scout reported, terrified. He had a Gatling gun. A single man held off a company? Balagu's eyes narrowed. Are my men nothing but trash? General, don't let a minor setback anger you. Aodu, a cold-eyed mercenary leader, interrupted. I've fought the Alpha Group and taken 3 of them down. These Chinese soldiers are nothing. Fine, Balagu growled. Bring me the hostages from the Chinese factory. If we have them, we have leverage. Consider it done. I was already ahead of them. I'd flagged the fastest path to the hospital for Lang Feng, guiding him through the city's veins while the rebels clawed at the surface. There's a fork in the road ahead, I radioed, my voice cool. Take the right, straight, then another right. You'll see a brick wall, the hospital is just behind it. Watch yourself, Lang Feng, there are hostiles inside. I looked at the monitor, my finger hovering over the control. Lang Feng, aim for the brick wall directly in front of you. Ram it. I roared, and the vehicle bucked as we smashed through the hospital wall. Athena, what is going on? I shouted into the comms. Old Ding, I thought he wasn't Dr. Chen. I didn't expect him to just start mowing everyone down. He killed them all, my contact replied, voice tight. I scanned the room, my heart hammering against my ribs. Dr. Chen, I'm Chinese Special Forces. I'm here to get you out. Take my daughter, he rasped, shoving her toward me. She's the only hope for a cure. Bullets peppered the air, narrowly missing us as we bolted for the exit. Move, I'll cover you, you clear the path. I know a way out. Get them, don't let them escape, the rebels shrieked from the hallway. I checked my radio. I'm Yuan Fei, the doctor. Dr. Chen's daughter is the key to the Manhwa virus. Lang Feng, you have 5 pursuit vehicles hot on your tail, take a sharp right. Are you insane? That's a dead end. Trust me. There's a jeep 100 meters ahead. It should still run. I've prepped some gear for you. Get in and stay low. I slammed into the driver's seat, pressing the girl onto the floorboards just as the lead rebel car screeched around the corner. They opened fire, but I was already drifting the jeep onto the side street, my pulse steadying as the engine roared. Damn it, the Chinese escaped again. Keep up the chase. As I navigated the tight streets, I checked my weapon. I'd acquired some heavy hardware, but their sheer persistence was starting to get annoying. Whoever invented autocorrect should burn in hell, I thought, struggling to communicate through the jammed comms. I took a hard left at the junction, drifted past a massive billboard, and cut a sharp right into an alleyway. Is the United States behind this? Dr. Chen's daughter asked, huddled in the seat. I'm Rachel, an American doctor. I scoffed. The U.S. They said they'd have an extraction route ready for us. I laughed, a harsh, dry sound. You still think the U.S. is going to save you? You're dreaming. Your American dream hit a wall the moment the shooting started. The U.S. was the first to abandon ship. Our escort fleet actually filmed their warships cutting and running. For all we know, your precious U.S. is the one that engineered this entire coup. That's impossible. You're lying. There are plenty of U.S. citizens in Djibouti. I'm one of them. I'm Chinese Special Forces, acting under orders to rescue Chinese citizens. I retorted. The only reason I'm saving you is because you're ethnically Chinese. If you don't believe me, get out. The jeep skidded to a halt. As the silence settled, my gaze flicked to the rearview mirror. I remembered the way this American doctor had shielded the little girl earlier, shielding her with her own body while the bullets flew. Even with a U.S. passport, she clearly hadn't forgotten her roots. Well, I challenged, waiting for her to move. Do you believe me? Go ahead, call your embassy, I challenged, gesturing to the phone, see if anyone actually picks up. Rachel just sat there, frozen, tears streaming silently down her face. Back on the Times Queen, I watched the screen as the jeep finally cleared the danger zone. Boss, Da He muttered, eyes locked on the monitor, the guy driving that jeep. He looks like he's using a Gatling gun. Is he really one of our people? What do you think? I'm not blind, I replied. Meanwhile, Balagu was losing his mind. He turned his rage toward Old Dog, his second in command. Tell me you didn't kill Dr. Chen. If the Chinese find out he's dead, they'll have the perfect excuse to turn this place into a crater with their missiles. General, that was just a slip-up by my men, Old Dog stammered. They're already closing in, you idiot. The Chinese fleet is moving. Balagu paced, his face turning an unhealthy shade of purple. General, Aodu cut in, stepping from the shadows. I don't know about their missiles, but that Chinese operative is heading for the Chinese-funded factory. I've prepared a surprise waiting for him that he'll never see coming. What are you planning? Balagu snapped. You can kill whoever you want in this country, but you do times not times touch the Chinese. That is my bottom line. Aodu laughed, a cold, jagged sound. Who do you think you are, telling me what to do? There's only one superpower that calls the shots here, and it's the United States. Balagu went silent. Even with $1 million bounty on his head, he knew better than to openly defy American orders. Fine, Balagu grunted. Get to the factory. Half a world away, the atmosphere in the high-level meeting room in China was suffocating. We've confirmed it, the report stated. Dr. Chen is dead. The room erupted in whispers. This wasn't just a loss of talent, it was an act of war. Their forces are already moving on the factory, the chief of staff noted, his voice grim. The Americans are using their Lemonier military base as a staging ground. They've got anti-ship and air-to-ground missiles locked and loaded, under the guise of rescuing their own citizens. I scoffed internally. The Americans wouldn't care if their own citizens were used as speed bumps, as long as it gave them a reason to intervene. We have to act, someone argued. The Lemonier base is their largest hub in Africa. We can't let them slaughter our people. We can't just open fire on a US base, another countered. Our times, Lin Times, is still in the vicinity. If we force a direct confrontation, their missiles will target our ship the second we blink. We're in a corner, and we need to get our people out of there before the fireworks start. The deck of the Lin was packed, a sea of anxious faces staring toward the horizon. Chief, if our escort fleet can neutralize their military base, we can still finish the evacuation, I argued. Our ships have the missile range to reach their base. We don't have to just sit here and take their threats. The chief of staff shook his head. It's not that simple. Even if a ballistic strike is technically feasible, we can't just ignore the international fallout. We'd be dragging other nations into a mess they aren't ready for. This is both a provocation and a warning, he continued, his tone hardening. The Americans are staking their claim. Africa is their backyard, and they're making it very clear who's in charge. He leaned over the table. Look at the reality. If they launch a missile and kill our civilians, they'll just blame the Djiboutian rebels. We won't have a shred of evidence. We'll be left empty-handed, and when the families of the victims start demanding answers, the military's credibility will be shattered. How do we explain that? By demanding an apology from Djibouti? Our efforts would be for nothing. The room fell silent. It was a lose-lose scenario. The only logical conclusion was to have the Lin retreat as fast as possible. Wait, I interjected. I have an idea. Gao Shiwei looked at me, his eyes sharp. Chief, the rebels are about to surround the Chinese-funded factory. Even if the Lin leaves, 44 of our people will be left behind to face a massacre. The escort fleet won't get there in time. I'm proposing we hire the arms dealer, Lin Chuan. The chief of staff stared at me as if I'd lost my mind. Are you getting senile in your old age, Gao? If the Chinese military can't solve this, why on earth would a mercenary dealer be able to? If this were a simple fix for an arms dealer, we wouldn't be sitting here tearing our hair out. Chief, I already asked Lin Chuan to step in, I admitted, bracing for the fallout. He agreed, provided we pay him $1 million USD per person. I know I didn't ask for permission, and I hope for your understanding. Enough of this nonsense, someone grumbled. Let's just get the fleet moving. But the chief of staff hesitated. He knew me. I wasn't the type to gamble on nonsense in the middle of a crisis. He leaned back, his eyes narrowing. Gao, tell me more about this dealer. He made a deal with me 6 days ago, I explained. He reached Djibouti in 3, and he's already influencing the conflict by coordinating with a former Special Forces operative on the ground. Former Special Forces? Yes, I confirmed. A veteran of the Southeast Military Region's Wolf Warrior Unit. Lang Feng, the chief realized. Exactly. Lin Chuan is working through Lang Feng. Together, they've already secured Ambassador Fan and saved Dr. Chen's daughter. In every engagement with the rebels, they've proven they aren't just playing around. Repelling a full company with just one man. And taking out hundreds of mercenaries in Djibouti? Can he really pull all of that off? The doubt in the room was palpable. Gao Shuwei, the chief started. Lin Chuan might be useful against local rebels, but this has spiraled into a standoff between two superpowers. I don't see how one man can make a difference. I trust him, I replied. He'll prefer miracles. Fine, the chief relented. Call him. Let's see what kind of tricks he has up his sleeve. On the Times Queen, I kept my eyes glued to the monitors. Boss, Lang Feng is almost at the factory, but the Red Turban Army and those mercenaries are closing in fast. We've got bigger problems? Da He interjected, sweat beading on his forehead. Death has spotted armored vehicles, maybe even tanks. Our current inventory won't be enough to handle that. My phone buzzed. It was Commander Gao. Mr. Lin, I'm not calling about a trade this time. This is about our civilians. Go on. We've confirmed the US base is prepping a missile launch. Their target looks like the factory where our people are holed up. The Times, Lin Times, is already packed with refugees and can't reach Djibouti in time. We're powerless to intervene. Is there any way you can help? I paused, listening to the gravity in his voice. I understand the military's current position, Commander. You've been struggling to make headway for years. My words hit the meeting room like a lead weight, leaving the senior officers in stunned silence. It was a brutal truth, but it hit the nail on the head. Mr. Lin, Gao continued, his voice softer. We need your help. We can't abandon our people. Whatever the cost, we have to bring them home. Name your price. Forget the money, I said, but I want 2 people. Who? Long Xiaoyun. Pulled her from her other duties. She's my dedicated liaison from here on out. And Lang Feng. I want him permanently. Long Xiaoyun is already your contact, so that's fine. As for Lang Feng, that's up to him. But you know, because he isn't active military, he can act without those political shackles. Exactly. I trust he'll be on board. One more thing, Lin Chuan, How exactly do you plan to pull this off? Our intelligence shows dozens of tanks surrounding that factory. I don't need a reminder of the odds, Commander. I'll handle the tanks. On behalf of the military, thank you. We'll wait for your signal. I hung up and turned to my team. Long Xiaoyun, contact Ling Feng immediately. Tell him he's about to receive a massive gear drop. I'm going to arm the workers. We can't rely on him to win a war alone. Da He Da Bai, get the yacht and the Times Queen Times into the Tajura River. We're getting those civilians out. I glanced at the screen one last time. Once the weapons are delivered, have Death return to base. He's going to be busy covering a massive dune. He repelled an entire company alone, and then wiped out over 100 rebels and mercenaries in Djibouti. The room went dead silent. Can one man really pull all of that off? Gao Shiwei looked at the screen, his eyes unwavering. Lin Chuan might have been an asset against local insurgents, but this has escalated into a standoff between the US and China. Can he really handle this alone? I believe in him, Gao Shiwei replied. He'll perform a miracle. Fine. The chief of staff relented, rubbing his temples. Call this Lin Chuan. Let's see what kind of cards he's actually holding. On the Times Queen, I stared at the tactical display. Boss, Lang Feng is closing in on the factory, but the Red Turban Army and those mercenaries are right on his tail. It'll be fine, I said, barely glancing up from the map. Da He hurried over, his face pale. Boss, the Reaper drone picked up armored vehicles. There are tanks moving in. Whatever we drop for Lang Feng, it isn't enough to stop an armored assault. My comms chirped. It was Gao Shiwei. Mr. Lin, I'm not calling to negotiate a deal, he said, his voice grave. It's about our citizens. We've discovered the US military base is prepping for a missile strike. Our intel suggests the factory is the target. A missile strike, I whistled. My life has too many loading screens, and I assume the fleet doesn't have the time to scramble a defense. The Times, Linyi Times, is already packed with evacuees. We're paralyzed, 44 civilians are stranded, and we can't reach them. Lin Chuan, I understand the spot the military is in. It's a struggle to even make a move without causing an international incident. My words hung in the air, a sharp reminder of the military's constraints, leaving the officers in the meeting room in a heavy, suffocating silence. Mr. Lin, Gao Shiwei continued, his tone desperate. We need your help. We cannot abandon our people. Name your price, whatever it takes. Forget the money, I said. I want 2 people. Who? Long Xiaoyun. Clear her schedule, she's my permanent liaison now. And Lang Feng. I want him officially on my payroll. Xiaoyun is fine, she's already our contact. But Lang Feng. That depends on if he's willing. He's not a soldier anymore, which is exactly why he can act without hesitation. He'll sign on. And your plan? Gao pressed. The rebels have dozens of tanks surrounding that factory. I'm well aware of the math, Commander. I'll handle the hardware. On behalf of the Chinese military, thank you, he whispered. We'll be waiting. I cut the feed and turned to my crew. Xiaoyun, get in touch with Lang Feng. Tell him to prepare for a massive drop. We're arming the factory workers. Lang. Repelling a full company with just 1 man? And taking out hundreds of mercenaries in Djibouti? Can he really pull all of that off? The doubt in the room was palpable. Gao Shiwei, the chief started. Lin Chuan might be useful against local rebels, but this has spiraled into a standoff between 2 superpowers. I don't see how 1 man can make a difference. I trust him, I replied. He'll perform miracles. Fine, the chief relented. Call him. Let's see what kind of tricks he has up his sleeve. On the Times Queen, I kept my eyes glued to the monitors. Boss, Lang Feng is almost at the factory, but the Red Turban Army and those mercenaries are closing in fast. We've got bigger problems, Da He interjected, sweat beading on his forehead. Death has spotted armored vehicles, maybe even tanks. Our current inventory won't be enough to handle that. My phone buzzed. It was Commander Gao. Mr. Lin, I'm not calling about a trade this time. This is about our civilians. Go on. We've confirmed the US base is prepping a missile launch. Their target looks like the factory where our people are holed up. The Times, Linyi Times, is already packed with refugees and can't reach Djibouti in time. We're powerless to intervene. Is there any way you can help? I paused, listening to the gravity in his voice. I understand the military's current position, Commander. You've been struggling to make headway for years. My words hit the meeting room like a lead weight, leaving the senior officers in stunned silence. It was a brutal truth, but it hit the nail on the head. Mr. Lin, Gao continued, his voice softer, we need your help. We can't abandon our people. Whatever the cost, we have to bring them home. Name your price. Forget the money, I said, but I want 2 people. Who? Long Xiaoyun. Pull her from her other duties. She's my dedicated liaison from here on out. And Lang Feng. I want him permanently. Long Xiaoyun is already your contact, so that's fine. As for Lang Feng, that's up to him. But you know, because he is an active military, he can act without those political shackles. Exactly. I trust he'll be on board. One more thing, Lin Chuan. How exactly do you plan to pull this off? Our intelligence shows dozens of tanks surrounding that factory. I don't need a reminder of the odds, Commander. I'll handle the tanks. On behalf of the military, thank you. We'll wait for your signal. I hung up and turned to my team. Long Xiaoyun, contact Lang Feng immediately. Tell him he's about to receive a massive gear drop. I'm going to arm the workers. We can't rely on him to win a war alone. Da He, Da Bai, get the yacht and the Times Queen Times into the Tajura River. We're getting those civilians out. I glance at the screen one last time. Once the weapons are delivered, have Death return to base. He's going to be busy covering a massive dune. You want to play hardball? Fine. Let's see who's actually harder. I holstered my sidearm and shouted toward the fortified gates, is anyone in there? I'm Chinese Special Forces, I yelled. I'm here to get you out. The gate creaked open just enough for me to see a sea of wary faces. Get us out? We've got 40 people, 14 AKs, 100 grenades, and thousands of rounds. That's enough to arm an infantry platoon. How exactly are you planning to save us? I didn't blink. You clearly have no idea what I'm capable of. They let me in, but the skepticism was suffocating. He says he's Special Forces, but one guy, come on, is he trying to be funny? The Red Turban Army has us surrounded, and the bridge to the port was blown to hell. We've got women and children here, not just fighters. How are we supposed to leave? I tossed a heavy, rugged case onto the concrete with a dull thud. This enough to change your mind? Because if not, I've got more. They stared at the grenade launcher in the case, mouths agape. Where did you get this? Would you believe me if I said it fell from the sky? Drop the jokes, soldier. The situation is dire and we don't need a comedian, one of the men snapped. We don't want you here. Fine, I said, checking my watch. You don't have to believe me, just give me 2 minutes. I stepped back out into the open. Right on cue, a series of dark, drifting shapes descended from the clouds, their parachutes billowing as they touched down outside the gates. Factory manager, look, those are airdrops. I walked over to the containers, the factory staff trailing behind in shock. I scanned the group until I spotted an older, hardened man. You're He Jiangguo, aren't you? Former Reconnaissance Company Commander, Southeast Military Region. You set up these defenses, right? I did what I could, he muttered, still staring at the freshly landed gear. But I didn't order this. Where did this come from? Let's just say a very well-connected arms dealer is backing our play. I kicked the locks open. This is all for you. Suit up. Gasps rippled through the group. Is that a Vulcan Gatling gun? Barrett rifles. M32 grenade launchers. Everyone, double time. Set up the defensive perimeter. We're bracing for a siege. Before we could even finish anchoring the turrets, a megaphone boomed from the tree line. An armored vehicle was rolling toward the gate. Listen up, inside the factory. I'm hunting a Chinese operative. Hand him over, and I guarantee your safety. You have 2 choices. Surrender the soldier and walk away, or burn with him. You have 10 minutes before we turn this place into a bonfire. The workers looked at me, panic rising. What do we do? Just wait? Exactly, I said, checking the bolt on my rifle. We wait. Are they for real? Someone whispered. If this fails, it's the boss who gets it first. Old He, are you in position? Locked and loaded. Outside, the mercenaries were pacing. What are these Chinese thinking? They're probably in there begging for mercy right now. The rebel leader sneered at the factory walls. They're done for. A minute left. I'm going to wash away my humiliation in their blood. Attack, he screamed, his voice turning into a feral roar. Charge, make sure they don't see another sunrise. They want to play hardball? Fine, let's see who's tougher. I stepped toward the factory entrance, my pulse steady. Is anybody in there? A voice answered, thick with skepticism. I'm a Chinese Special Forces soldier. I'm here for the rescue. Rescue us? Buddy, we've got 40 people, 14 AKs, 100 grenades, and thousands of rounds of ammo. That's enough to arm a reinforced platoon. How exactly do you plan on saving us? I didn't blink. You clearly don't know my capabilities. A long silence followed, then the heavy clank of metal bolts sliding back. You're a fellow countryman, so I'll let you in, but you're one guy. Are you here for a comedy sketch? Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. Faces were drawn, hollowed out by fear. One of the men gestured to the barricades. Your Special Forces? Great. But we're surrounded by the Red Turban Army. The road to the port is blocked. We've got women and children here. How do we get out? We've tried thinking of a breakout plan, but it's suicide. I dumped my pack on the table, the heavy thud drawing their attention. I popped the lid to reveal the arsenal inside. How about this? You want to play hardball? Fine. Let's see who's actually harder. I holstered my sidearm and shouted toward the fortified gates. Is anyone in there? I'm Chinese Special Forces, I yelled. I'm here to get you out. The gate creaked open, just enough for me to see a sea of wary faces. Get us out. We've got 40 people, 14 AKs, 100 grenades, and thousands of rounds. That's enough to arm an infantry platoon. How exactly are you planning to save us? I didn't blink. You clearly have no idea what I'm capable of. They let me in, but the skepticism was suffocating. He says he's Special Forces, but one guy. Come on, is he trying to be funny? The Red Turban Army has us surrounded, and the bridge to the port was blown to hell. We've got women and children here, not just fighters. How are we supposed to leave? I tossed a heavy, rugged case onto the concrete with a dull thud. This enough to change your mind, because if not, I've got more. They stared at the grenade launcher in the case, mouths agape. Where did you get this? Would you believe me if I said it fell from the sky? Drop the jokes, soldier. The situation is dire, and we don't need a comedian, one of the men snapped. We don't want you here. Fine, I said, checking my watch. You don't have to believe me. Just give me 2 minutes. I stepped back out into the open. Right on cue, a series of dark, drifting shapes descended from the clouds, their parachutes billowing as they touched down outside the gates. Factory manager, look, Those are airdrops. I walked over to the containers, the factory staff trailing behind in shock. I scanned the group until I spotted an older, hardened man. You're He Jianguo, aren't you? Former reconnaissance company commander, Southeast Military Region. You set up these defenses, right? I did what I could, he muttered, still staring at the freshly landed gear. But I didn't order this. Where did this come from? Let's just say a very well-connected arms dealer is backing our play. I kicked the locks open. This is all for you. Suit up. Gasps rippled through the group. Is that a Vulcan Gatling gun? Barrett rifles. M32 grenade launchers. Everyone double time. Set up the defensive perimeter. We're bracing for a siege. Before we could even finish anchoring the turrets, a megaphone boomed from the tree line. An armored vehicle was rolling toward the gate. Listen up, inside the factory. I'm hunting a Chinese operative. Hand him over, and I guarantee your safety. You have two choices. Surrender the soldier and walk away, or burn with him. You have 10 minutes before we turn this place into a bonfire. The workers looked at me, panic rising. What do we do? Just wait? Exactly, I said, checking the bolt on my rifle. We wait. Are they for real? Someone whispered. If this fails, it's the boss who gets it first. Old He, are you in position? Locked and loaded. Outside, the mercenaries were pacing. What are these Chinese thinking? They're probably in there begging for mercy right now. The rebel leaders sneered at the factory walls. They're done for. A minute left. I'm going to wash away my humiliation in their blood. Attack, he screamed, his voice turning into a feral roar. Charge. Make sure they don't see another sunrise. Retreat, now. I screamed, diving for cover as the ground erupted. Didn't your mother ever tell you not to poke the bear? I muttered, catching my breath. The chaos of the firefight faded into a ringing silence, followed by the stunned shouts of the factory workers. We won. We actually won. They were staring at me like I'd just performed a miracle. Lang Feng, the manager breathed, his eyes wide. I believe you now. I think we can hold this place until the military gets here. Can you introduce us to the guy backing you? Another asked, eager to see the benefactor behind our sudden arsenal. I've never even seen him. Hell, I didn't even know he existed. I shook my head, keeping my eyes on the horizon. Focus. For all we know, he's watching us right now, but we aren't staying. Pack everyone up now. We're abandoning the factory. My boss is bringing the ship to extract you, and the Red Turban Army is rolling in with tanks. Tanks. The manager went pale. Why would we leave? We have weapons and we're getting airdrops. We're safer behind these walls. I told you, I'm not saving you because I'm some invincible god, I said, my voice sharp. I'm saving you because I understand the battlefield. Djibouti is a dumpster fire. The Red Turban Army thinks they're in charge, but the Americans are pulling the strings. Those mercenaries? They're just Uncle Sam's attack dogs. If we sit here, we're just waiting to be buried. We have to move. I looked at the gathered crowd. It's a gamble. We move or we get ground into dust. What's it going to be? The silence was heavy, but the manager stood tall. If we stay, we're sitting ducks. Let's move. We're with you, Lang Feng. I'm not leaving a single one of you behind, I promised. That's the mission. I stepped aside to make the call. Meanwhile, at the Rebel Command Center, Balagu was pacing, called to Xiong. I want a status report on the factory. General, his aide stammered, the line is dead. Balagu frowned. And the recon team? They haven't checked in? General, the aide whispered, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. The mercenaries. They've been wiped out. Balagu slammed his fist onto the table, his face contorting in rage. You're lying. Da Xiong doesn't fail. He turned on the aide, his eyes cold. If your recon is as incompetent as you are, don't bother dumping your failures on me, I snapped. You were the one who insisted on handling the kidnapping of the Chinese civilians. Look at the mess you've made. Wake up and smell the coffee. Only my armor can salvage this disaster. I let out a sharp, cold laugh. Funny, you seem to have forgotten one little detail. And what's that? He sneered. What could you possibly have besides a few armored trucks? The power to take everything you have, I replied. If you're dead, that tank division becomes mine, doesn't it? Silence finally descended. It was deafening, the kind of quiet that only happens when someone realizes they've reached the end of the road. I suppose you want things to stay this way, right? With only one voice left in the room? Exactly, I said. Only your voice. Now, order those tanks to encircle the Huazi factory. I don't want a single person leaving alive. They're already running, sir, an aide reported. Running? Where could they possibly go? I turned to my men. Let's go. I'll handle the rest myself. Kill every last Chinese, and find that arms dealer. I want him on the line. Boss. One of my team members called out, eyes locked on a drone feed. Lang Feng has already evacuated the civilians. They're heading for the port. The rebel tanks are closing in, but our drones are spent. We've lost eyes on the battlefield. It's fine, I said, leaning back. The rebels are just as blind. They have no idea those civilians have already slipped the net. Anran was pacing, her nerves frayed. The road to the port was a death trap, swarming with rebel patrols. Suddenly, my comms crackled to life. Boss, someone is trying to patch through. Says he's the deputy commander of the Red Turban Army. The smart one finally showed up. We hit the brakes and piled out, vanishing into the brush. A moment later, a sleek vehicle rolled into view, and a man stepped out with an arrogant grin. Look at what we've stumbled upon, the legendary Chinese super soldier. You're American, I stated, eyeing his gear. Sharp, he chuckled. CIA, actually. We orchestrated this whole coup, every bit of it. I felt a surge of cold fury. So, you're the ones behind this. And you don't care about your own people? There are just as many American citizens on this soil as Chinese. Are their lives worth nothing to you? He threw his head back and laughed, a hollow, soulless sound. You clearly don't understand our values. Democracy and freedom, right? For that glorious cause, anything is expendable. Even American lives. If the cause demands it, they're just collateral. You, a half-breed, you're not even a thought in the ledger. We don't call it abandonment. We call it clearing the clutter. My pulse hammered against my ribs as his words sank in. A chilling realization washed over me, the sheer, mechanical apathy of it all. It was a hellish, distorted reality. Target locked. A voice crackled through his radio. Tomahawk ready, awaiting authorization to launch. Fire, he ordered without a blink. I stood there, staring into the abyss of his eyes. I couldn't comprehend how a mind could be so hollow, how the world had twisted into such a nightmare. I don't know what went wrong with this world, I whispered. Actually, he replied, a grin playing on his lips. The world is perfectly normal. There's an old saying, you only shout about what you're missing. The more you lack, the louder you scream to convince the world you actually have it. A nation that drops bombs on every other country while preaching about love and peace. It's perfect, really. Power is truth, and in this world, power is the only justice that matters. If you're so sure that more power equals more justice, I said, cutting the air with a cold smile, then right now, I think I'm a hell of a lot more righteous than you. Without a second thought, I yanked a rocket launcher from the seat beside me and leveled it at his head. He scrambled back, his composure shattering like glass. Stay back, don't you dare, you damn Chinese. That lady is vicious, I heard one of the team murmur, watching Anren handle herself. She's a doctor, right? I guess being a surgeon really does make you a professional at killing. Shut it, I barked. I'll cover you. You two focus on the sniping. Suddenly the radar chirped. Boss, high-speed target detected in the air. Missile launch origin, Camp Lemonnier. So, they finally lost their cool, I muttered, eyes scanning the horizon. Are the Chinese civilians in danger? Trajectory locked, the tech reported, sweat slicking his brow. The missiles are passing directly over our position. Anren's heart hammered against her ribs. Camp Lemonnier was barely 100 kilometers away. According to the yacht's fire control computer, those missiles were already screaming through the sky above us. Boss, 2 incoming. Don't sweat it, I said, keeping my eyes fixed on the display. Did you forget what we're packing on this boat? Let's see how Russian steel handles American tech. Prepare to watch some fireworks. I didn't give anyone time to worry. Before the thought could even settle, the counter-missiles roared from our deck, streaking upward to intercept the Tomahawks. The S-500 platform surged, its speed blurring the horizon until the sky ignited. All Tomahawks intercepted, the tech yelled. Boss, the drones are almost there. Good. Reaper, initiate auto-nav. It's time to deliver some warmth to our American friends. They've been working so hard lately, they deserve a break. I checked the comms. Lang Feng, everything is under control. The drone is on site. Everything else is handled. Your only obstacle left is those mercenaries. Copy. Lang Feng's voice came through, steady as a rock. You heard him, I commanded. Kid, take your squad and flank left. Old He, cover them. Take down those mercenaries, especially the leader. What about you, boss? I'm taking the direct route. Come on out, I yelled into the brush. I know you're there. A figure emerged, his face twisted in frustration. You Chinese don't have a prayer of leaving this country alive. You only won because you stumbled onto these weapons. If not for that, you'd be dead. Is that right? I stepped out, my posture relaxed. I'm Chinese Special Forces, and I'm guessing you're ex-American Special Ops, aren't you? Guilty as charged. The ground began to tremble. Lang Feng, Tank Division incoming. Don't panic, Lang Feng ordered. Hold your ground. We're about to watch a damn good show. You're not afraid of tanks? The mercenary grinned, though his eyes were frantic. If you saw that factory leveled, with every civilian dead, would you feel despair? You're facing America. We've pushed military force to its absolute limit. We hold the world by the throat with the strongest fist in history. I looked at him, unimpressed. Is this America you worship really as powerful as you claim? You still don't get it, do you? Why do you think I haven't let those tanks fire a single shot yet? I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper. It's because I've got something special waiting just for them. Prepare yourself for an even greater gift, he sneered, his eyes gleaming with a twisted intensity. You're about to face true despair. If that's the best you've got, then bring it on, I replied, standing my ground. I've got all day. Just then, a sharp whistle cut through the air. High above, a silhouette tore through the thick cloud cover. It was the Reaper drone, descending like a dark angel from the heavens. Ha 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 ha, look at that, you Chinese. That's American power, a height you'll never reach. Your nation couldn't even dream of copying tech like this. The mercenary, Old Gu, cackled, his face twisted in manic ecstasy as he tracked the drone's descent. You've lost your mind, I said, shaking my head. Seriously, stop talking and just watch what real power looks like. He watched, mesmerized, waiting for the devastating strike. But when the dust settled from the explosion, he froze. The target hadn't been us, it was his own forces. That was a cloud leopard bomb, I noted, watching his face drain of all color. You guessed right. Why? How is this possible? He stammered, his American dream visibly unraveling. You want the truth? That drone belongs to a Chinese individual, not the military one person. Liar, the Chinese military doesn't have American Reapers. It's impossible. You're right, they don't, but you never accounted for the fact that other people can acquire them, I said, closing the distance. Just like that cloud leopard bomb. His mind went blank. And the Tomahawks? Our missiles? Intercepted. Mid-flight. You're lying, he wheezed, though the desperate hope in his eyes had already flickered out. He knew the timeline. He knew the missiles should have hit by now. I'm not lying, and you know it. If I had to guess, those missiles launched from the US base in Djibouti. You should know exactly how long they take to arrive, shouldn't you? His expression crumpled. I watched his arrogance dissolve, leaving behind only a hollow, fragile shell. Do you still think your country holds all the strings? You're nothing. You thought you could rewrite the rules, incinerate our people, and walk away with a whoops, are bad, or find a scapegoat. This world has changed, and it's about time you felt the weight of Chinese power. I turned to see Leng Feng watching the drone hover steadily. Is that the same one that dropped our supplies? Someone asked. Leng Feng nodded vaguely. It was a mystery even to him. He only knew it belonged to our mysterious arms dealer. He had no idea how the man obtained such hardware. Now what? Leng Feng asked, his eyes turning back to the road ahead. The Red Turban Army is bound to have more waiting for us. Should we wait for another cloud leopard? Someone asked. No, I cut in, watching the horizon. Keep moving. From this moment on, no Chinese citizen in Djibouti will be harmed. Not one. Meanwhile, back at the US military base, the command center was a hive of frantic energy. The line to Old Go had gone dead 10 minutes ago, and their fire control radar had lost the missile telemetry over the inner island of the Tajura River. Sir, an aide reported, his voice tight. Satellite imagery shows a massive explosion at the target site. Confirm it's our strike, the commander demanded. It wasn't a standard warhead, sir. It was a cloud leopard. A cloud leopard? Was it the Chinese? Did they intervene? No, sir. Their warships haven't even arrived in theater yet. The commander paced the room. A cloud leopard strike intercepted Tomahawks, and none of it authorized by the Chinese military. Who the hell is doing this? He roared. Get a joint reconnaissance flight over the Gulf of Aden immediately, and get me a satellite phone. I need to brief the president. On the deck of my yacht at the Tajura port, I scanned the shoreline through my binoculars. My brow was furrowed with growing tension. The convoy was long overdue. How long since you last spoke to Leng Feng? I asked, not taking my eyes off the horizon. 2 hours and 15 minutes, came the reply. They should have been here by now. Don't worry, I said, though my gut was twisting. Leng Feng doesn't make mistakes. You have a lot of faith in him. Spend enough time with the guy, you'll see why. Suddenly, the alarm blared. Boss, it's the Red Turban Army. What do we do? Should we pull anchor? The Red Turban Army? Well, look at that, they're delivering a real gift. I mused. What do you mean? They've been our allies for the past 3 hours, I said, pointing toward the approaching fleet. Take a closer look. It was Leng Feng. As the civilians flooded onto the dock, cheers erupted. Look, it's our military. They came to get us. I watched as Leng Feng stepped off the transport, his silhouette as sharp as ever. You're safe now, he told the crowd before walking over to me. Good to see you, Leng Feng. You haven't changed a bit, I said, offering a grin. The years in Africa seem to have kept your edge sharp. I've kept busy, he replied. He looked around the yacht, his curiosity getting the better of him. You keep talking about the boss. Who is he? Is it Lin Chuan? Yeah, I nodded. He likes the title. I think at his core, he still fancies himself a businessman. And the military trusts him. He's become one of their most valuable partners. He's done more for our national interests than anyone else on the ground. I see. Leng Feng gestured to the man beside him. The boss is waiting for you on the yacht. And by the way, this is Balago, the deputy commander of the Red Turban Army. I looked at the man, the second in command of the entire rebellion, and let out a silent chuckle. My to-do list was long, but today, at least, I had crossed the biggest thing off it. I didn't expect him to come to me, but there he was. Boss, Leng Feng is here. I gestured toward the newcomer. Let me introduce you to General Balago. General, this is our Chinese Special Forces operative Leng Feng. Balago's eyes lit up as he shook Leng Feng's hand. Leng Feng, I've heard of your exploits. You live up to the legend of the Chinese Special Forces. Leng Feng gave a modest nod. You're too kind, Deputy Commander. The credit really belongs to Mr. Lin's hardware. Actually, I interjected with a smirk, General Balago is the commander-in-chief now. Leng Feng's brows shot up. The top dog in Djibouti. Exactly, I said. Audu is dead and Old Gu is gone. Balago is the supreme commander of the Red Turban Army, and if things go to plan, he'll be the president of Djibouti soon too. The government army is finished, Balago added smoothly. My forces control the territory. The presidency is just a matter of time. He turned his gaze toward me, his expression softening, but that will require Mr. Lin's continued support. There is, however, one major hurdle remaining. Don't worry, I assured him. I already have a plan. Balago bowed his head in thanks, then looked at Leng Feng. And what are your plans now? Leng Feng hesitated. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. You aren't going back? I said, leaning back in my chair. When I agreed to help the Chinese military with the evacuation, I made sure to include a condition. They leave you with me. Consider yourself my new right-hand man. Lang Feng looked stunned. Your henchman. The military mentioned I might stay, Lang Feng admitted, but it was supposed to be my choice. And it is, I said, but I think we both know you're staying. A slow smile spread across his face. You're right, I'm in. Good. Now, you're probably wondering what the plan is, I said. It's all about the arms trade. The Queen Island factory is humming, but I need a foothold in Africa, a hub for distribution. Queen Island will remain my base of operations, but the location is too isolated. It's stable, sure, but it can't project power into the hot zones. Lang Feng nodded. Djibouti is the gateway to the Suez Canal. It's the economic lifeline connecting West Asia and Africa. It's perfect. Exactly. You've got a sharp strategic mind to match those fists, I said. I've got 2 jobs for you. I'm listening. First, get these civilians to the Chinese naval base and handle the handover to their fleet. Second, once that's done, I need you to stay at that base. We're establishing a supply line from Queen Island to Djibouti, and I need someone to manage the orders and logistics for the African and West Asian markets. I handed him a file. To keep things legal, you'll act as a special consultant to General Balagu. He knows these territories inside and out and will help you navigate the local trade routes. Given how unstable the region is, it's going to be a bumpy ride. You'll also need to provide Balagu with some military tactical support, I said, catching Lang Feng's gaze. Understood. I'll make sure it gets done. Then you're all set to move out. I'm heading back to Queen Island. While we prepped to depart, a high-level briefing was unfolding in a secure conference room at the Chinese Special Operations Headquarters in Beijing. Gao Shiwei was mid-report to the Chief of the General Staff. Chief, the Red Turban Army has completely routed the government forces. They've seized control of all of Djibouti and have already begun the transition. The chief frowned, tapping the table. They had our military base surrounded. Now they've switched to a defensive posture and reopened our supply lines. That's quite the pivot for a group that was ready to tear us apart an hour ago. Exactly, sir. Their sudden change in alignment is curious, to say the least, especially considering their previous backing from the US. It has to be linked to Lin Chuan, the chief muttered. Everything points to him, Gao Shiwei continued. Intelligence confirms Lin Chuan didn't just intercept those 2 American missiles. He deployed a Reaper drone to drop a Cloud Leopard bomb, wiping out the Red Turban Army's most elite strike force. The sheer scale of his influence is staggering. He's become the pivot point for the entire region, though I suspect other state actors might be pulling strings behind the scenes. The chief turned his gaze toward Gao Shiwei. You've been tracking this closer than anyone. What's the reality on the ground? Long Xiaoyun, whom I stationed with Lin Chuan, contacted me 30 minutes ago. Audu is dead. The second-in-command has personally boarded Lin Chuan's yacht, and Lin Chuan is grooming him to become the next president of Djibouti. The room went deathly silent. Everyone in the room was blindsided. A private arms dealer was essentially installing a head of state and dictating national policy. If my memory serves, the chief said, his voice dropping, he only started this arms business a few months ago, right? That's correct, Chief. His influence has grown so rapidly that he's now capable of altering our entire strategic layout. We need to understand his endgame. Where is he now? Returning to Kiribati. Should I have him diverted to the capital for a meeting? The chief stood up, buttoning his coat. Don't bother bringing him here. Arrange a flight for me. I'm going to see him myself. Halfway across the Pacific, my yacht cut through the calm waters. I stood on the deck, feeling the salt spray. Boss, the books are balanced, my assistant reported, tapping a tablet. The civilians are safely in the hands of the naval base. The 44 million is cleared. Oh, and the Star Moon Legion just placed an order for 200 more M1A2 tanks. Persia received the final shipment of missiles, and they've already got the gold ready for pickup. I nodded, feeling the weight of the horizon. My life used to be about small-scale chaos. Now, it seemed like everything I touched was turning into a major geopolitical play. My to-do list was growing faster than I could clear it, but looking at the haul, I couldn't complain. If my procrastination problem was finally fixed, it definitely wasn't because of tomorrow. Tell them we'll be there to collect shortly, I said, leaning back, and ask if they want to keep paying in gold or switch to RMB. As for the new missile orders, tell the Persians to send over their desired quantities. We're in no rush. Aladdin, commander of the Star Moon Legion, had sent an invite. They'd seized the strategic hub of Basra, and their oil fields were finally secure. He was eager to discuss a partnership, but I wasn't biting yet. Oil prices were bottoming out. Touching those fields right now was a guaranteed loss. I'd wait for the market to stabilize. Aladdin wasn't going anywhere, and he certainly wouldn't dare stiff me. With Ayn Rand and Long Xiaoyun handling the comms, I pulled up my system panel. Name, Lin Chuan. Age, 18. Total assets, $1.85 billion. I stared at the store interface, scrolling through the specs and pricing for various weapon systems. Modern warfare wasn't about a single wonder weapon. It was about dominance through a cohesive ecosystem. I needed to expand my production lines, and I needed to do it fast. My thoughts were interrupted by a satellite call. The Chinese military was reaching out. A VIP wanted to visit. I checked the coordinates and gave the green light. 30 minutes later, Ayn Rand and Long Xiaoyun were on the deck, binoculars trained on the horizon. 5 black UH-60 Black Hawks crested the sky, closing in on our position. As they touched down, the chief of the general staff stepped out. "It's an honor," I said, stepping forward to greet him. "I can't imagine how long that flight must have been." "It was worth it," he replied. "On behalf of China, I want to thank you. Those 44 citizens trapped in Djibouti wouldn't be alive if not for your intervention. It was just a job, Chief. I got paid and I delivered the goods. But you didn't fly all this way just for a thank you. What do you actually need?" He didn't waste time. "It's about Africa. Adu is dead, the Red Turban Army controls Djibouti, and Balagu has stepped into the power vacuum. I understand you and Balagu share a unique arrangement. We're partners," I confirmed. "He's a man of vision, and he'll be the president of Djibouti before long." The chief looked at me, weighing the implications of a private arms dealer essentially creating his own head of state. "You've really taken the reins there. What's your ultimate goal?" "Simple," I said, gesturing to the expanse of the ocean. "I'm using Djibouti as a strategic springboard to open the African market. This is just the first line in a much larger trade network." He looked at me with a mix of caution and respect, clearly realizing my ambitions were far larger than a few weapon sales. "Africa is massive, but I get the feeling you're not stopping there." "You're catching on," I replied with a thin smile. "Africa is just the start. Africa is just a stepping stone," I said, pouring a drink. "Business is best done with those who can actually afford it. The nations to the west are flush with cash." "True, but they don't exactly have a high demand for heavy munitions," the chief pointed out. "Selling combs to monks doesn't make you a great businessman, Lin." I grinned. "If they don't need them yet, I'll find a way to make them feel the necessity. It's all about creating the market." "Ambitious. But execution is another matter entirely," he countered. "For starters, the US has a massive military base right next door in Djibouti. They're watching everything in West Asia and Africa. You're not going to be able to just waltz through their front door." "They don't have to like it," I replied, my eyes narrowing. "My plan starts with one simple objective, wiping that base off the map." The chief chuckled, a genuine note of surprise in his voice. "You've got guts, kid. That actually aligns quite nicely with our own interests." "My cards are on the table," I said, leaning forward. "Now, why don't you tell me why you're really here? I don't buy for a second that this was just a social call." "Fair enough. We have intelligence that a civil war is about to erupt in Alia," he said, his tone shifting to professional gravity. "The current government is locked in a power struggle with Jamali, the former president's son. The government claims they've crushed the coup, but in reality, Jamali has fled south and is consolidating control over several provinces. He has the troops, but he's desperate for weapons. And let me guess," I interjected. "China officially supports the current government, but your strategic interests would be better served if the Jamali family came out on top." "Exactly. The pieces fell into place. If the current regime won, they'd be fully indebted to the US, allowing the Americans to build a massive airbase on the Suez Canal. That would give their carriers unprecedented mobility, effectively putting a knife to our throat." "I'm in," I said. "Consider it a done deal." "Excellent, though I assume you'll want to know what's in it for you." "I've been looking for a way to streamline my logistics," I admitted. "Moving that much hardware through civilian channels is a headache." "I thought you might say that," he replied, a knowing glint in his eyes. "We happen to have a spare cargo ship sitting idle. It's a bit of an unconventional asset, but it's perfect for your line of work." "A cargo ship?" I raised an eyebrow. "We retired a few old carriers a while back. One became the Times Liaoning, but the others were repurposed for theme parks and display." He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "I think you'll find this one is still quite capable of doing some heavy lifting." "They're offering me an aircraft carrier?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice level. "Retired, yes," the chief replied. "Technically, it's a decommissioned hull. We have 3 of the old class. One was restored to become the Times Liaoning, and the others were relegated to theme parks and scrap. But this one, it's still substantial." "What's the displacement?" "It's actually larger than the Times Liaoning. It's heavily damaged, and the original schematics are long gone, but for a hull that size, converting it into a massive cargo transport is entirely feasible." A slow smile spread across my face. He had no idea. My arms dealer system possessed every schematic known to man, and it could optimize the conversion process in its sleep. I was essentially being handed a superpower, and I was going to get it for a steal. "What's the price?" I asked. $50 million. I nearly laughed. That was less than the scrap metal value. It was a massive favor, and we both knew it, a down payment on the massive debt they owed me for the evacuation. "I'll take it," I said instantly. "And if you need to, we can help with basic propulsion and radar installation. You'll have to cover the hardware costs, but the labor is on us." "I'll need the military's expertise for the refit, but I'll supply my own equipment," I countered. He paused, looking me over. "You're sure? Fine. Once the gear arrives at the Weihai Naval Port, we'll fast-track the conversion. Give us a month." "Pleasure doing business with you, Lin Chuan." "Likewise. One more thing," he added as he turned to leave. "We're about to officially recognize the Red Turban Army's regime in Djibouti. Be ready, Elia is a different beast. Their government is backed by the US and carries significantly more firepower than anything you've faced so far." "I understand," I said. "I'll handle it." As he departed, I felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a sale. This was the foundation for the next few decades of our regional influence. I walked back onto the deck, and Anran and Long Xiaoyun immediately swarmed me. What did he want? What did you guys talk about? Nothing much, I said, suppressing a grin. He just sold me an aircraft carrier. They stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Impossible. Meanwhile, at the American Command Center, the mood was far less celebratory. Mr. President, an aide reported, the conflict in Djibouti is over. The Red Turban Army has unified the territory. The Chinese nationals are safely evacuated, and Beijing has officially recognized the new regime. Your approval rating has ticked up 2%, and the momentum is holding. The president leaned back, a shark-like smile crossing his face. Excellent, just as I expected. Now, our next priority is clear. We need to systematically scrub Chinese influence from the African continent. Step 1 is neutralizing their base in Djibouti. Should we hand this over to the military? The aide asked. No, I said, shaking my head. The Red Turban Army handles the dirty work. With the state elections only 5 days away, I want those Chinese out of Djibouti before a single ballot is cast. Meanwhile, in a secure office stateside, the mood was far less optimistic. Mr. President, an aide reported, we've hit a snag with the Djibouti operation. Adu, the leader of the Red Turban Army, has been assassinated. The president frowned. Assassinated? Was it the Chinese? No, sir. Our own CIA team carried it out. But now the situation in Djibouti is fluid. Their new leader, Balagu, is playing a game of cat and mouse. He's evasive, dodging every attempt we make to solidify our partnership. It's starting to look like he's leaning toward Beijing. And the cause? Our intelligence links the current instability to a Chinese arms dealer. Our operative, Old Gu, and his entire team were wiped out by a Cloud Leopard bomb, a weapon provided directly by this dealer. The president slammed his hand on the desk. A private arms dealer with access to vacuum thermal weaponry? That's impossible. This has Beijing's fingerprints all over it. We've been barking up the wrong tree. Our real enemy is still the Chinese state. He turned to his advisors. Alert Camp Lemonnier. I want large-scale exercises immediately. Deploy the Times USS Intrepid, the Times USS Franklin, and the entire carrier strike group to the West Asian coast. Let's show them who really owns those waters. A month had passed since my meeting with the chief. My aircraft carrier was well on its way, with my sister, Lin Chuan, handling the formal handover. I turned my attention back to Djibouti. The specialized equipment arrived at the Weihai port, I said to my team. Installation is already underway. We're 2 weeks out from completion, and the first 100 tanks are loaded and shipping out. Anran stepped forward, her expression tense. Lin, we have a problem. The Chinese military inspected the hardware you sent back for the refit. They found sensitive weapon systems. Things that, officially, don't exist outside of their own top-secret stockpiles. And they're demanding answers. They want to know how you got your hands on the Dongfeng missile series. I shrugged, uninterested. If they're surprised, that's on them. Honestly, Anran, after all this time working with me, are you really still shocked by such trivialities? She stared at me, dumbfounded. Trivialities? Lin, you're talking about state-level tactical nukes. They're just tools. In my hands, every weapon on this planet is an open book. If I really needed to, I could source the big mushroom without breaking a sweat. I didn't care to explain the mechanics of the system. It wasn't worth the breath. Stop hovering. Go contact the military. Tell them I need 2 more shipments of tanks moved. I'm backing Jamale and Alia, and I expect full cooperation. What about Lang Feng? She asked, pivoting to business. He's already cut a deal with Jamale, I said. If we help him win the civil war, Jamale hands over 5% of the Suez Canal shares. A 5% stake? Anran's eyes widened. Exactly, I said, leaning back with a satisfied smirk. That's over $1 billion in annual revenue. I told you, I only play for the big stakes. It's not just the money, I said, a confident smirk tugging at my lips. The initial munitions contract for Alia is already worth more than $1 billion, but that's pocket change. If it's not the cash, what is it? The Suez Canal. If I'm a shareholder, I'm not just a merchant anymore, I'm a kingmaker. I'll hold the authority to decide whose ships get to pass through and whose get blocked. In wartime, that's not just a business advantage, that's a strategic chokehold. I didn't wait any longer. Tell Lang Feng, initiate the Phase 1. Half a world away, the mood in the Oval Office went from calculated to chaotic. Mr. President and aide burst in breathless. The situation in Alia has collapsed. Civil war just broke out. The president slammed his hand down. Those incompetent government fools. I told them to hold their fire until I gave the signal. It wasn't their choice, sir. Jamale, the former president's son, just went on national television. He's accused the government of selling out our nation's interests and demanded that our Camp Lemonnier forces withdraw immediately. Before he could even process that, the Secretary of State chimed in with even worse news. Sir, it's worse. Balago in Djibouti just declared his full support for the Chinese military lease. He even aired footage of the 2 missiles we launched, turning public sentiment against us. The people are calling our strike an act of unprovoked aggression. How in the hell did they get that footage? By the time the geopolitical chess match was heating up, my yacht was already docking in Djibouti. Welcome to the Menino base, Lang Feng said, gesturing toward the sprawling complex. It used to be a local village, but after the government forces folded, Balago handed it over to us. It's my new office. I looked around. The facilities were surprisingly robust. Nice setup. Does Balagu spend much time here? Occasionally. He sends his private secretary to hash out policy details. Rumor has it, he's basically the president of Djibouti now, Leng Feng noted, flashing a grin. Which makes you effectively the vice president. I cut through the banter. Let's talk shop. What's the reality on the ground in Elia? It's a US orchestrated mess. Elia has 29 provinces, and Jamal currently holds 8 of them. The kicker. They're all situated right along the Suez Canal. Perfect, I said, a dangerous glint in my eyes. That means we don't have to worry about Jamal's air defense capabilities. Why not? Because, I replied, pointing toward the map, the Suez Canal sits directly across from the territory of Israel. Israel is a die-hard US ally and Elia's primary rival. Because of that constant threat, Elia has heavily fortified its coastal cities with anti-air batteries that, by a stroke of luck, currently sit right inside Jamal's territory. So, I summarized, we have air superiority covered, but your ground forces are starved for armor. Exactly, Lin Chuan. Then let's move. How long to Elia? Under 3 hours from Djibouti. By the time my feet hit the ground in Suez City, Jamala was waiting for me. Mr. Lin, I've been expecting you. Please get in. 15 minutes later, we pulled into the core command center of the Alliance Army. It was a massive installation, spanning 2 full military sectors. As we walked through, I saw rows of Russian S-300 long-range systems, Jincheng missiles, and even China's Red Flag, 2S. It was a hell of a collection. Just a fraction of our strength, Jamal boasted. Across our entire territory, we've got over 100 anti-air batteries. Impressed? Very, I said, though I wasn't just looking at the missiles. We stepped into the command post and my eyes locked onto a massive sand table map. A smile touched my lips. The Alliance is making moves, I see. You've had a busy month. Indeed, Jamal replied. Since we renounced the Sisi government, our 5-province coalition has been pushing north. We've already reclaimed 3 provinces, and Sisi abandoned the northernmost Gulija province without a fight. They've pulled their main force back, and intelligence suggests they're regrouping for a massive counteroffensive. Targeting Suez City? I asked. Yes. They've mobilized half their National Armor Corps, over 300 tanks. 100 are US, made M1A2S, the rest are T90S. My armored regiment is barely 100 strong, and most of those are antiquated T80S. We're outgunned. I chuckled to myself. Of course he's outgunned. This is Africa, the land of I'm on a seafood diet. I see food and I eat it. General Jamali, I said, turning to him, what kind of hardware are you hoping for? Can you match those 300 tanks? If you have something like the new M1A2, my men are ready. M1A2? No, I said dismissively. That's far too complex for your crews. 99% of your soldiers wouldn't even know how to boot up the fire control system. Then T90S? My men are familiar with that platform. I shook my head. You've got it all wrong, General. I'm not talking about T90S. Then what? Jamali asked, looking puzzled. T72S. The room went dead silent. Jamali stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Mr. Lin, are you joking? T72S? Those are 1960s Soviet relics. Jamal scoffed, his face twisting with disbelief. They're leagues behind a T80, let alone a T90 or an M1A2. You're asking me to send my men into a meat grinder. I didn't flinch. You're looking at the past, General. The T-72 was the world's first true third-gen main battle tank. It packs a 125mm main gun that outclassed anything the US had in the M60 era. It utilizes advanced composite armor. And unlike those temperamental American machines, the engine is bulletproof. If you can drive a tractor, you can master a T-72. Jamali wasn't buying it. It doesn't matter how simple it is. With barely 100mm of effective armor, it's a death trap. A 120mm shell from a T-90 would turn it into a coffin before my crew even realized they were being targeted. Hell, even a 50-year-old 105mm cannon could punch right through it. Those are just myths, I countered, my voice calm. My T-72s have a level of protection and fire control precision that makes your domestic knockoffs of the M1A2 look like toys. Mr. Lin, this isn't the time for tall tales. General, you think I'm bluffing? I stepped closer, locking eyes with him. The tanks arrive in 3 days. Test them. If they aren't the monsters I say they are, everything, every contract, every secret agreement between us and the state is null and void. Long Xiaoyun and Anran stiffened beside me, but I didn't care. Agreed, Jamali snapped. Rest in the guest villa. We'll see the truth in 3 days. The next 3 days were a masterclass in procrastination. While everyone else fretted, I spent my time lounging in a rocking chair, soaking up the sun and enjoying the local hospitality. It was nice, after all. I treat my to-do list like Netflix. I keep scrolling instead of picking something. When the deadline hit, a convoy of heavy transporters rumbled into the Kamesi tank facility. Jamali's lead technician, Dr. Max, walked toward the cargo with a look of pure disdain. He didn't even hide his sneer as he gestured to his crew. Start the diagnostics. Let's see how much junk this guy actually shipped us. Begin testing, Max commanded, his voice dripping with arrogance. I want full specs. If these things are as ancient as they look, I want to know by lunchtime. The team scrambled to work. Dr. Max, external armor integrity is standard. Fire control systems are operational. Power systems are fully green. Max frowned, his eyes narrowing as he walked around the chassis. Testing combat performance now. I want to see these antiques break. Combat performance checks complete. Max barked, his voice tight. Now, let's test the defensive capabilities. If these things are as hollow as they look, I want to see them turn to scrap. He gave the order, and the 105mm fire control system slammed around directly into the T-72's hull. A massive shockwave tore through the air, followed by a thick, acrid cloud of smoke. My team and I stood by, watching as the dust finally settled. There it was, the T-72, standing completely untouched. No way, Max muttered, his jaw practically hitting the floor. It shrugged off a 120mm equivalent armor-piercing round. How? He frantically signaled his team, and they swarmed the tank, tearing it apart, looking for hidden mods. They checked 3, 4, 5 times, but there was nothing, no external plating, no secret reinforced skeleton. It was a stock T-72, yet it was performing like a god. Is the report ready? Max demanded, snatching the data pad. I need to get this to General Jamali immediately. This doesn't make sense. Within the hour, Jamali was on the line, his voice vibrating with excitement. Mr. Lin, the test results. I am speechless. Thank you for these machines. My confidence in winning this war has hit the roof. When can you deliver the rest? I'll wire the payment right now. Actually, I want to double the order. Put me down for an entire division of T-72 CES. Cash up front. After I hung up, Anran turned to me, eyes wide. Boss, how did you actually do that? That wasn't a standard T-72. It's the T-72B, I explained with a shrug. I swapped out the optics for high-end digital sensors and shoved in a new engine. It's got the targeting precision and mobility of a T-90 now. But the armor, you can't just slap a new engine in and expect it to survive a 120mm slug. Truthfully, I didn't touch the plates. I leaned back, enjoying the look on their faces. Armor performance comes down to one thing, purity. If the steel isn't uniform, it's useless. Look at the Indian Argent series. My factory produces steel with zero microscopic imperfections. And the T-72's composite layer? It uses quartz sand as a buffer to disperse kinetic energy. The geometry and density of that sand are everything. You're saying your factory prints sand with 100% precision. Exactly. Even compared to the M1A2, the gap in composite armor efficacy is less than 20% when you remove all impurities. When you combine that with my manufacturing standards, a T-72 isn't just a tank, it's a fortress. The next few days were a blur. The Alliance Army launched a blitzkrieg using the T-72S that left the CC government forces scrambling in the dirt. It was a total rout. Jamal seemed intoxicated by the momentum, his face practically glowing with the sheer adrenaline of winning. He found me on the balcony beaming. Mr. Lin, he started, already planning the next impossible maneuver. Thanks for the win, Jamali beamed, practically vibrating with excitement. I didn't share his enthusiasm. Honestly, that was mediocre at best. We had the perfect ambush set up, yet the tactical execution was sloppy. Alia's military standards aren't exactly on par with the Dragon Nation. Lin, Jamali countered, unfazed by my critique. For us, this is a massive victory. Now, surely the Alliance can launch a full-scale counteroffensive? Not a chance, I cut him off. The attrition rate was too high. Attrition. The ratio was excellent. We lost 10 tanks. They lost 28, 20T, 90S, and 8M, 1A1S. Jamal, do the math. They've still got over 200 left. I let out a frustrated sigh, glancing at Lang Feng. He looked like he wanted to bash his head against a wall. It was clear that Jamali, despite being a general, had the military intuition of a goldfish. Jamali leaned forward, his face turning serious. Lin, the CC government's push toward the Suez Canal has forced merchant ships to divert around the southern tip of Africa. Our canal toll revenue, our only source of funding for these weapons, is cratering. If we don't strike now, the money dries up. Surely you support a bold move. Lang Feng finally stepped in, his voice cold and analytical. Jamali, it's not about losing our nerve, it's about reality. The T-72B is an incredible machine, but it isn't a miracle worker. We've been lucky so far. CC's T-90S were loaded with high explosive rounds because they didn't think we had any armor. Only their M1A1S were packing AP shells. I nodded. Once they wise up and load their T-90S with armor-piercing rounds, our T-72Bs are toast. We sacrificed rear and side armor to keep these things fast and agile. We're glass cannons, and the enemy is just starting to figure that out. Exactly, Lang Feng continued. If a few upgrades could turn Cold War relics into superior modern tanks, the world order would collapse overnight. We're outclassed by their M1A2S and the Dragon Nation's 99A tanks. I leaned back in my chair. My next shipment arrives in a few days. That'll put 300 T-72 CES under your command, giving us the sheer volume we need to overwhelm them. Another 300 are coming in a month. That's our window. Jamali slumped slightly. So, we just wait. Not exactly, I said, a faint smile playing on my lips. Lang Feng has a plan. Let him walk you through it.